Chapter 1288. Elder Mang Ye's gaze instantly became subtle. He waved the green jade token in his hand and revealed a meaningful smile. "You mean, you'll come again tomorrow?" Chu Luiyue nodded shyly, which was rare for her. "The day after tomorrow." Chu Luiyue nodded with an even redder face. "You can't be coming for an entire month, right?" Elder Mang Ye's mouth twitched. No. How can a student do such a thing?" Chu Luiyue hurriedly denied. She put her palms together and explained awkwardly and embarrassedly. "This. You also know that I just broke through to the 9th grade celestial physician some time ago. It's the time when I consume the most medicinal herbs." Elder Meng Yi looked at her with a strange gaze. No one else could come up with such a reason. There were so many 9th grade celestial physician students in the academy, but he had never seen any of them do this. "Elder, you won't disagree, right?" Chu Luiyue asked carefully. Elder Meng Yi suddenly laughed. "How can that be? Since Wanzhang made such a promise to you, it proves that he thinks highly of you. All these years, he has only accepted you as his disciple. He can't wait to dote on you. What's wrong with spending some points on you?" He waved his hand. "Don't worry. This old man promises to give this list to him a month later." Chu Luiyue also laughed. "Thank you, Elder." Elder Meng Yi lay down again. "Go." Chu Luiyue bowed and left. The Medicine Wind Valley regained its silence. A light breeze blew, and the rich fragrance of medicinal herbs filled the air. Elder Meng Yi lay on the small wooden bed with his legs crossed. He patted the cattail leaf fan in his hand and muttered in a low voice. Wanzhang, that old fellow. This time, he's going to bleed heavily." He turned his head and looked in a certain direction of the Medicine Wind Valley. In the night, a huge Xian formation flickered with an extremely faint glow, enveloping everything. It also isolated that place. Elder Meng Ye's gaze deepened. He was silent for a while before he chuckled. "It's been a long time since I've seen such a troublesome child. She's quite similar to you. I've always kept your herb garden for you. Why didn't that wretched girl come back to take a look?" In the end, he shook his head and closed his eyes again. There was a hint of longing and helplessness in his eyes. How worrisome. It was a peaceful night. In the blink of an eye, it was the next day. Early in the morning, Chu Luiyue simply tidied up and went straight to Elder Wanzhang's residence. When she arrived, she realized that Elder Wanzhang was already waiting for her. After chatting for a while, the master and disciple went straight to the point. Elder Wanzhang first exchanged a few moves with Chu Luiyue. After confirming that she was indeed stronger than she looked, he felt both proud and curious. But in the end, he suppressed the impulse in his heart and did not ask about Chu Luiyue's background. Chapter 1289. In the following period of time, Chu Luiyue stayed obediently in Ninheng Mountain. For some reason, Debao did not appear again. Chu Luiyue did not know where he had gone, nor did she know how to find him. Thus, she decided to stay in her own place and cultivate in peace. Sometimes, she would study the Xian formation left behind by Debao, and sometimes she would flip through the doctor's medicine manual that Elder Wanzhang had given her. Chu Luiyue originally thought that these two things would consume a lot of brain power and energy. After all, with her current strength, it would be very difficult for her to comprehend these things. But soon, she realized that the truth was completely different from what she had expected. When she was learning these things, she did not feel that it was too difficult. In fact, occasionally, she would even feel a subtle sense of familiarity. It was as if she knew how to do it all along. Chu Luiyue hid these thoughts extremely well and cultivated quietly as usual. The only thing she was worried about was Dumpling. A month had passed, but Dumpling had yet to come out. She did not know how it was doing during this period of time. According to the three-eyed eagle, such a long time should be enough for Dumpling to completely activate the power of its bloodline. What made her even more uneasy was that the opening of Thousand Wine Mountain had been delayed again and again. Many students in the academy were puzzled by this, but most of them did not delve into it. After all, to them, Thousand Wine Mountain was just a place where they could occasionally relax and have fun. Even if it was closed for a month, or even 3 to 5 months, it would not affect them much. However, Chu Luiyue sensed that something was amiss. She had tried to inquire about Thousand Wine Mountain several times, but it was to no avail. In the end, because she was afraid of arousing suspicion, she could only temporarily quiet down and wait silently. Right now, no news should be the best news. Before Chu Luiyue could hear the news of Thousand Wine Mountain opening, another person arrived first. Shang Yusin. The moment Chu Luiyue saw that it was him, she understood why he was here. Greetings, Elder. Chu Luiyue stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Shang Yusin glanced at the barrier of Nineheng Mountain behind her and could not help but say, Rongxiu really thinks highly of you. Not only did he drag you to Thousand Wine Mountain, but he even let you stay here. He shrugged. You have to know that even we don't have the qualifications. Chu Luiyue smiled and asked, You're here for that thing? Shang Yusin. I didn't expect you to be even more straightforward. Let's get to the point. You've helped me so much before. If I still beat around the bush with you now, wouldn't that be too much? Shang Yusin enjoyed Chu Luiyue's words. Good. Then let's not waste any more time. Let's go. Chu Luiyue paused. Is this very important? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1291. Of course it's important. At the mention of this, Shang Yusin immediately perked up and began to explain to Chu Luiyue. Refining is refining materials into treasures. Whether or not you can refine an outstanding yuan instrument depends on the materials and the structure. These two factors determine the amount of tianlei tempering it can withstand. You must know that the more tianlei is triggered, the stronger the yuan instrument will be, and naturally, the more useful it will be. Look at this scarlet cloud sword. It's top-notch in all aspects. Only in this way can you refine a venerable artifact. He sighed. Back then, that person exhausted his blood, sweat, and energy to refine this scarlet cloud sword. It's a pity that it was buried deep in the dark feathers abyss for thousands of years and never saw the light of day. Now that it's in your hands, you can inherit it. If that person's spirit is in heaven, he should be quite pleased, right? The higher the level of the yuan instrument, the harder it is to comprehend the mysteries hidden in it. This scarlet cloud sword is the same. I only stared at it for a while just now, and I already felt a little uncomfortable. But whether I can comprehend it or not is still unknown. Shang Yusin said very honestly. It's a pity that you're not a blacksmith. If you are, and you have such a treasure in your hands, it'll be much more convenient for you than others. If you're talented enough, you might have the chance to refine a powerful divine artifact in the future. There was no lack of regret in his words. Chu Luiyue listened quietly, but his heart skipped a beat. A blacksmith, strictly speaking, she should be considered half a blacksmith, right? The first thing a true weapon refiner needed to do was to be able to trigger heavenly lightning. A cultivator could only be sure if they had the talent to become a blacksmith after breaking through the shackles and becoming a god-level powerhouse. As for whether she had the potential to become a blacksmith, she would only know after she broke through to god-level powerhouse. Shang Yusin casually found a place to sit cross-legged. I'll meditate for a while first. You can look around. By the way, there are many things piled up at the back of the mountain. If there's anything you like, just take it. After saying that, he closed his eyes as if he was really going to cultivate. Chu Luiyue hesitated for a moment and could not help but ask. Elder. There's something I want to ask you. Shang Yusin's eyes were still closed, calm and composed. Speak. Chu Luiyue paused. I caused so much trouble on Thousand Wine Mountain the other day. I wonder if it's fixed now. Shang Yusin snorted and looked at her. You're still concerned about this? Don't worry. The damage you caused that day was not small, but during this period of time, we have been repairing it overnight. Basically, it is as good as new. Then why hasn't it been opened yet? On the back, there were 2 small engraved words that were extremely worn out. However, after wiping off the dust, the words were still clear and legible. Heavenly Order. This was something from the Tianling dynasty. At this moment, Chu Luiyue was extremely sure. This pattern, this engraved words, all of them showed its origin. Most importantly, this handwriting, if she was not mistaken, it was Taizu's handwriting. Chu Luiyue suppressed her violently beating heart and said softly, Taizu. Sensing that her mood seemed to be a little off, Taizu's voice carried a trace of worry. What's wrong? Chu Luiyue tried to make her voice sound as calm as possible. There's something that I want you to personally identify. I wonder if it's convenient for you to come out. Taizu only hesitated for a moment before coming out of Scarlet Heaven Sword. Although it was somewhat inappropriate for him to appear here, and he might even be noticed by the people of Lingxiao College, he was more concerned about Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue handed over the jade pendant. Taizu, please take a look. Is this yours? Taizu stepped forward and took a closer look. With just one look, his expression abruptly changed. Chu Luiyue immediately confirmed in her heart that this was Taizu's item. Sure enough, Taizu immediately said, This is indeed my jade pendant. Why would it appear here? Chu Luiyue pointed at the gap above. Taizu, there are bloodstains in these cracks. Is this yours? Mobile user, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1292. The blood had seeped into the cracks. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see it. Moreover, the color was dark and dry, as if a long time had passed. Taizu frowned and stared at the jade pendant for a long time before slowly reaching out his hand. He felt a familiar throbbing. He spoke with difficulty. That's right. This is my blood. And there should be a part of my soul sealed inside. Chu Luiyue looked up in shock. Really? Taizu's translucent hand gently brushed past the broken jade pendant. Yes. I used to carry this jade pendant with me. Later. I don't remember what happened after that. His voice was exceptionally low and slow, as if it was wrapped in 1,000 years of wind and frost. It carried the smell of rust and blood, as well as the long-lost smell of time and space. Before seeing this jade pendant today, I had never thought of its existence. And now, I don't remember how I lost it. Chu Luiyue pondered for a moment and guessed. Taizu, perhaps you deliberately threw away this jade pendant. Otherwise, why would a part of his soul be sealed inside? Taizu didn't speak for a long time, his eyes bottomless. In fact, in his heart, he also agreed with Chu Luiyue's theory. Previously, when Chu Luiyue refined the Scarlet Heaven Sword soul, he was shocked to discover that he wasn't a remnant consciousness, but a soul. During this period of time, he had been thinking about this question, but he couldn't remember what happened back then. It wasn't until he saw this jade pendant that he was even more certain of his previous suspicions. He was indeed still alive. Chu Luiyue looked at Taizu with a complicated gaze. Taizu, do you really not remember at all? Perhaps, fusing the soul in this jade pendant with you will be of some use. Taizu pondered for a moment before slowly nodding. I'll try my best. His two souls had been separated for 1,000 years. It wouldn't be so easy to fuse them again. Chu Luiyue clenched the jade pendant in his hand. Don't worry, I will do my best to help you. Taizu was still alive, and he had found other souls. As long as his soul was pieced together, he might be able to find an opportunity to help Taizu possess his body and help him be reborn. This thought made Chu Luiyue excited. I'll ask the elder. He might know the origin of the jade pendant. Tracing back to the source, it would only be a matter of time before he could find out what had happened back then. Shang Yusen looked at the jade pendant in his hand and frowned as he recalled for a while. In the end, he shook his head. Teet. Tisate. Regarding this jade pendant, I really can't think of anything. Chu Luiyue took the jade pendant and lowered his eyes. In fact, she had already expected this result. The material of this jade pendant might be good for ordinary people, but in front of a refiner like Shang Yusen, it was not very eye-catching. Otherwise, it would not have been thrown to the back of the mountain. He probably did not even take a second look at it, let alone anything else. Thank you. I'll think of another way. Seeing Chu Luiyue being so persistent, Shang Yusen was curious. Is this jade pendant very important to you? Chu Luiyue held the jade pendant tightly and nodded seriously. This is my ancestors. Shang Yusen understood. No wonder. Since that's the case, I'll return this jade pendant to you from today onwards. You must take good care of it in the future. Maybe one day, you'll find some clues. Chu Luiyue nodded. Thank you. She paused for a moment and said, if there's nothing else. Shang Yusen knew what she was going to say and immediately agreed. No one can be calm after finding such a thing. You should go back and have a good rest. Chu Luiyue held the jade pendant tightly and thanked him again before leaving. On the way back, Chu Luiyue still felt a little absent-minded. She had never thought that she would find the jade pendant that Taizu had lost just by going to Shang Yusen's place. More importantly, there was a strand of the great ancestor's soul inside. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? Perhaps this was the arrangement of the heavens. Chu Luiyue was shocked and relieved. There was also an indescribable joy in her heart. Taizu had treated her with great kindness. If she could help Taizu come back to life, it would be great. Taizu, do you know what preparations you need to make to fuse with a soul? Chu Luiyue asked nervously. After a moment, Taizu said in a deep voice, I'm afraid it's much more difficult than you think. Chu Luiyue was stunned. You mean, back then, I had already created half of the divine realm and could be considered a demigod. If you want to fuse with such a soul, you have to at least reach the level of a doctor. Otherwise, it would only be a futile effort. Is that so? Taizu's words calmed Chu Luiyue down. From the looks of it, this matter will take a long time to plan. But no matter what, it's already extremely lucky to be able to find your soul. Taizu replied and fell silent again. Chu Luiyue knew that he needed some time now, so she didn't disturb him anymore. Chu Luiyue had just walked to Qingming Square and was about to turn in the direction of Mount Zhouheng when she suddenly heard a familiar voice. She turned her head and saw Luo Yanming. She smiled and greeted her. Luo Yanming walked over and said with emotion, I finally see you. Why didn't you show your face during this period of time? Chu Luiyue could only find an excuse to dodge it. I've been busy cultivating recently, so I haven't been out much. Why, do you need something from me? Ah, right, we agreed to spar before. Chu Luiyue patted her head lightly. Look at my memory, I forgot when I was busy. Luo Yanming chuckled. So you still remember. That's good. But I didn't call you here today because of this. Oh. The Academy released the mission list today. I was planning to take a look. Do you want to come with me? Mission list. Chu Luiyue was confused. What's that? Luo Yanming couldn't help but laugh. Looks like you haven't been out much recently. You don't even know about such a big thing. The Academy will release the mission list every quarter. The first to complete the mission will receive an extremely generous reward. Many people are eager to give it a try. Don't you want to take a look? Chu Luiyue was actually not interested in this matter. After all, she had enough things to do now. But seeing Luo Yanming's eager face, she asked, "What mission is it?" Luo Yanming's eyes lit up. I heard that it's related to the Heavenly Square Cauldron. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Even if someone suspected that there was a problem, they could not produce any evidence. Unless the real Heavenly Square Cauldron appeared. And at this moment, it was with her. Other than Lingxiao College, this matter also involved many first-rate families and sections. Who was the person behind this? How could he have such a shocking move? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1294. Chu Luiyue felt that she had faintly sensed a huge conspiracy. A chill ran from the bottom of her feet to the top of her head, causing her to shudder. She poured herself a cup of tea to moisten her dry throat. How could she tell the elders about this? If she couldn't produce any evidence, no one would believe her. They might even think that there was something wrong with her brain. But if she just let them go, she felt very uneasy. Chu Luiyue's hand slowly rubbed against the cup, and she asked after a while, she asked, "How can you prove that the one in my body is the real Heavenly Square Cauldron?" The legendary three-eyed eagle was silent for a moment before saying, "Do you think it's fake when it can suppress me for 1,000 years?" Chu Luiyue was speechless for a moment. Besides, don't forget. The great phoenix dragon skeleton was also suppressed in it, and now there are two Tian babies sealed in it. Any one of these was ironclad evidence. In the world, there were less than 5 people who could do this. Chu Luiyue sighed. You're right. I was thinking too much. The Heavenly Square Cauldron is a supreme treasure, even more powerful than your red cloud sword. So now, no matter what, you can't leak this news. Otherwise, you will be surrounded by wolves. The legendary three-eyed eagle warned. I understand. Chu Luiyue drank the rest of the tea in one gulp. I'll think of another way. Tianling Dynasty. Imperial Palace, Zhaoyu Hall. It was already night time, and the bright moon hung high in the sky. Octagonal glass lamps were hung inside and outside the hall. The light was so bright that it elongated one's shadow. Sheng Guanyu stood on the steps in front of the door, looking at the moon and sighing. I wonder how you is doing over there. Counting the time, it had already been several months. Except for a few letters, there was no other news. After a long time, he was panicking. Your Majesty, Her Highness is now the Princess of the Yuntian Tower. Her status is noble. Moreover, with that person protecting him, you don't have to worry. Behind Sheng Guanyu, Cin Yi was wearing a green robe. His expression was calm, and his long and narrow eyes were indifferent. That's exactly why I'm so worried. Sheng Guanyu shook his head and sighed. I didn't expect Rong Xiu's identity to be so shocking. I wonder how many people will criticize Er's identity. It had been a long time since he received the news, but every time he thought about it, Sheng Guanyu's heart would still ripple. She's alone there. What if she gets bullied? In the Tianling dynasty, was the new empress with a noble status and was above millions of people. But on the other side, this was not worth mentioning. He understood too well how important one's background was in that kind of place. If she were to suffer any grievances, there would be no one to back her up even though they were thousands of miles apart. Although Rong Xiao could help her, he couldn't possibly watch over her all the time, right? The hearts of parents in the world were pitiful. Thinking of this, Shangguan Yu could not help but turn around. "Cini, do you have any way to cross?" It was always good to have one more person to help. Cini pondered for a moment. Her Highness didn't give this order. Shangguan Yu was a little helpless. The 13 Yu guards had always only listened to Yu, and he could not command them. But in the entire Tianling dynasty, he could only trust these people. Cini continued. "We'll be loyal to you and will definitely prioritize Her Highness's safety." Hearing this, Shangguan Yu's heart calmed down a little. That's good, that's good." With that, he left with his hands behind his back. Cini sent him off for a long distance before returning to Zhao Yu Hall. In the end, he bumped into Qi Han, who had returned from a long journey. "Big brother, there's a situation." Cini narrowed his eyes. "Speak." Qi Han's expression was solemn, and the scars on his face were even more murderous. "Someone went to the Empire of Yao Qin and seems to be secretly investigating Her Highness. The other party is extremely powerful, and we paid a huge price to deal with them. But, the other party probably won't give up just like that." Cini frowned. "Have you found out who it is?" Qi Han hesitated for a moment. "It seems to be someone from that side." Otherwise, he really couldn't think of anyone else who could be so powerful. "But it seems that someone is helping us." Qi Han hesitated for a moment before lowering his voice and speaking. Cini didn't seem surprised by this. "It's his duty to protect Her Highness. Do what you did before, and do what you will in the future. Also, send more people to the Empire of Yao Qin. With that person's help, there shouldn't be any problems." "Yes." Qi Han was about to turn and leave when he suddenly thought of something and asked, "Big brother, are we really going to keep waiting here? Her Highness has been in the Divine Ruins world for so long, and I don't know what's going on." Cini shook his head. "We just have to do what Her Highness instructed us to do." Qi Han could only respond. With a few leaps, he quickly disappeared into the night. Cini thought for a moment before walking in another direction. Night. 100 Herbs Building sent off the last customer and was about to close the door when a man in a black cloak appeared in front of the door. The servant instinctively said, "We're closed today." "Sir, please come again tomorrow." The man in front of the door said calmly, "I'm here to see Yuling." In Xiling City, there weren't many people who dared to call 100 Herbs Building's manager Yuling by his name. The servant was shocked and hurriedly raised his head. However, the person was completely hidden in a cloak and even had a hood on his head. His figure and appearance couldn't be recognized at all. A trace of vigilance arose in the servant's heart. Please come up." Yuling, who was standing on the second floor, shouted down. The servant hurriedly put on a smile. "Please come up." The man's footsteps moved slightly. Before anyone could see how he moved, he had already passed the servant and went up the stairs. The manservant raised his head in shock. "You may leave first," Yuling instructed. The servant knew that he shouldn't stay any longer, so he hurriedly left. On the second floor, Yuling led him to a private room. After closing the doors and windows, the two men faced each other. Yuling sat down leisurely and smiled. "You haven't come to my place for a few years. Why are you suddenly interested today?" The man opposite him took off his hood. It was Cini, who had just left the palace. His expression was calm as he said concisely, "I'll join forces with you." A hint of surprise flashed across Yuling's eyes. "Join forces? You? With me?" Cini looked at him quietly. "Someone is investigating His Highness's identity. I need to borrow your men." Yu Ling naturally understood that His Highness was Chu Luyue. He asked without batting an eyelid. My men aren't cheap. Sun Yi suddenly smiled. Isn't it only right for His Highness the Holy Sun's men to do this? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Other than her, who else could it be? Previously, it didn't seem simple, but now it seemed like it was true. If it wasn't for her guilty conscience, why would she do this? Jiang Hetian read the letter over and over again, his brows tightly knitted together. Whether it's her or not, it doesn't matter. What's important is that this proves that she's not as weak as the rumors said. Moreover, from the content of this letter, it seems that there are two parties secretly protecting her. The people behind these two parties are worthy of consideration. Jiang Jiwon gritted her teeth and suddenly looked at him. Father, we were careless before and ended up like this. This time, let's send more people. Moreover, he had to choose a stronger one. I don't believe they can do this again. Go again. Jiang Hetian didn't agree with her suggestion. Ziyuan, our losses this time are already very serious. If we send more people and the same thing happens again, what should we do? You have to know that some of the people here are of high status. How should I explain this to the family? He was the patriarch and had a lot of power, but he had a lot of things to take care of and a lot of responsibilities to bear. The casualties this time could be covered up with a random excuse, but what if it happened again? Because this matter was extremely private, he had sent a group of people he trusted the most to handle it. After this battle, they had lost so many people at once. He was also very distressed. Father, what do you mean by this? Are we just going to give up and stop investigating? Jiang Jiwon couldn't believe it. We've suffered such a big loss, and you're just going to let it go. Father doesn't mean that. Ziyuan, you can't just look at what's in front of you. You have to consider the overall situation. Jiang Hetian advised earnestly. They're in the light while we're in the dark, and we were completely wiped out in the first time. This is enough to prove that this place is not to be trifled with. I think it's better to investigate first and find out the details of the other party. Jiang Jiwon sneered. Find out the details of the other party. Wasn't that what the first batch of people were supposed to do? What happened in the end? Jiang Hetian was speechless. Seeing Jiang Jiwon's firm attitude, he put away the letter and said in a deep voice, You can't be willful about this matter. You have to listen to Father. Let's get through this period first. We'll talk about the rest later. Besides, you've been at home for a long time. It's time to go back to the academy, right? Jiang Jiwon wanted to refute the first half of the sentence, but when she heard the second half, she was suddenly speechless. She turned her head and said with her usual arrogant and willful voice, I don't want to go back. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from love. Chapter 1296. What did you say? Jiang Hetian's face turned cold. No matter how angry you are, it's been a long time. Haven't you calmed down yet? I've asked you several times before, and you always said that you didn't want to go back. If you continue to be like this, are you not going to go back in the future? When he asked the last question, his voice had already become stern. Jiang Jiwon's heart trembled. Knowing that he was really angry, she couldn't help but feel a little afraid. But at the same time, the evil fire in her heart also emerged. I just don't want to go back. If you ask me again, I'll give the same answer. She knew that after going back, what awaited her would be endless ridicule and ridicule. Jiang Hetian took a deep breath. Ziyuan, don't be stubborn. I'll keep a close eye on things here in the future. You go back to the school first. Don't let Elder Danqing and the others wait for you. Jiang Jiwon didn't speak. Obviously, she was still resisting. Jiang Hitian's patience was gradually running out. He didn't understand. His precious daughter used to be considerate, intelligent, and generous. How did she become like this in the blink of an eye? Ziyuan, I'll ask you one last time. Have you thought it through? Are you really not going back? Jiang Hitian's tone was gloomy. Jiang Jiwan was still a little afraid in her heart. She softened her attitude and shed 2 lines of clear tears of grievance. Dad, it's not that I don't want to go back, but they've really gone too far. Then, Jiang Jiwan told Jiang Hitian what had happened in the school while crying. Of course, there was no lack of embellishment and distortion in the middle. In Jiang Hitian's ears, it was as if the whole world was against his daughter. He was distressed. He couldn't vent the anger that had accumulated just now. After a long silence, he said, Ziyuan, I know you've been wronged, but it wasn't easy for you to get into Lingxiao College. It's also a big part of your capital. If you leave Lingxiao College, what will they say about you? Have you thought about it? Jiang Jiwan's expression froze. The position of Yuntian Tower's princess consort has already fallen into the hands of others. Now you don't have much of an advantage. Don't you understand? Seeing that Jiang Jiwan finally began to waver, Jiang Hitian softened his tone. Father was wrong just now. I shouldn't have been so anxious with you. But I'm doing this for your own good. You know it best, don't you? Compared to everything you can get when you go back, what is being talked about in secret? The last sentence finally made Jiang Jiwan change her mind. She wiped her tears, but her eyes were still filled with anger. Father is right, your daughter is too short-sighted. It's best that you can think clearly. Jiang Hitian finally breathed a sigh of relief. Also, if you go back now, you can still make it to the Great Desolate North. The northern region of the Great Desolate Land. Not bad. Father has been busy dealing with the matters in the mansion for the past 2 days, so I didn't have time to tell you. Then, Jiang Hitian explained the relevant information to Jiang Jiwan in detail. It's a pity that our mausoleum of immortal water is not a first-class family, so we don't have the right to go. But as long as you go back to Lingxiao College, you can go with the elders. Jiang Hitian's eyes seemed to sparkle with excitement. Ziyuan, that's one of the 10 great sacred artifacts. As long as they could get some benefits from it, it would be worth it. Jiang Jiwan was also a little restless. After hesitating for a moment, she finally nodded as if she had made up her mind. I'll go back now. Lingxiao College. Chu Luiyue watched as the last small Xian formation was slowly swallowed by the light of the larger Xian formation. A satisfied smile appeared on her face. 10 days had passed, and she had already deciphered half of the Xian formation. And the further she went, the smoother her progress became. It shouldn't be long before she could completely decipher it. Although deciphering a Xian formation didn't mean that she could cast a Xian formation of the same level, it was still a good start. This proved that the cultivator had the corresponding potential. Just like now, Chu Luiyue was a level 9 Xian master. After deciphering this Xian formation, she was closer to breaking through to the next level. She closed her eyes and carefully recalled the scene just now in her mind. After confirming that every step was correct, she got up and walked outside. When she reached the door, she habitually glanced to the side. Rong Xiao hadn't returned yet. A trace of doubt flashed through her eyes. Dugu Mabao had said that Rong Xiao would come back about half a month later. But now it was almost time, and Rong Xiao was still nowhere to be seen. For some reason, she felt a little uneasy in her heart. But this feeling was fleeting, and Chu Luiyue didn't catch it. Chu Yu. Shuisheng and the other 2 were already waiting for her outside the barrier. Chu Luiyue put away her thoughts and walked outside. Seeing the 3 of them ready to go, Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh. Today is just the qualifiers. Why are you guys so nervous? Shuoxing couldn't help but say, of course I'm nervous. Aren't you afraid of being eliminated at all? If you miss this opportunity, you might not be able to see a sacred artifact again in your life. Chu Luiyue thought to herself. Not to mention other things, I still have a chance for this. Just do your best later. This is much more useful than scratching your ears and cheeks nervously. Luo Shishir and Luo Yanming couldn't help but laugh out loud. The originally tense atmosphere also relaxed a lot. Luo Shishir smiled gently. Chu has a point. Let's go now. Chu Luiyue nodded, and the four of them flew in the direction of the East Emperor Bell Tower. After flying for a distance, Chu Luiyue subconsciously turned her head and looked at Thousand Wine Mountain. Chu Yu, what are you looking at? Shuoxing followed her gaze and couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Why you're not thinking of going to Thousand Wine Mountain again, are you? Nothing good happened every time this guy went there, causing them to be traumatized. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes. That's not it. I'm just thinking, it's been so long, why hasn't Thousand Wine Mountain opened yet? Ah, you're talking about that. Shuoxing immediately understood and became interested. Actually, everyone is secretly thinking about it. Didn't Elder Bo Yen say that it would be closed for a month? It's almost been a month and a half, and there's been no movement. Many people are very curious. Thousand Wine Mountain is an extremely important place in the academy. This time, the elders should be doing this because of some considerations, right? Luo Shishir guessed. But it doesn't affect us much anyway, so there's no need to pay too much attention to it. We just have to wait patiently. Maybe it will open soon. Chu Luiyue paused for a moment and smiled. You're right. Many students had already gathered below the East Emperor Bell. At a glance, it was a vast expanse of black. As soon as Chu Luiyue and the others arrived, the crowd instantly quieted down. Many people looked over with fervent eyes. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1297. This atmosphere. Why does it feel so wrong? Chu Yu, you're here. A girl who looked to be in her teens suddenly took a few steps forward and walked in front of Chu Luiyue with a smile. She was wearing a bright yellow dress and a buyao of the same color on her head. She had an oval face and delicate facial features. She was very beautiful. However, there was a hint of shrewdness in her eyes, which let people know that she was not as unsophisticated as she seemed on the surface. Chu Luiyue's eyebrows twitched. My name is Liao Shuiqing. I came to the academy 3 months earlier than you. You can just call me Qingqing. The girl in front of him did not seem to be embarrassed by Chu Luiyue's unfamiliar gaze. Instead, she introduced herself very generously and even had a hint of intimacy. Luo Shishir, who was standing beside Chu Luiyue, saw this and felt a faint sense of annoyance in her heart. However, she did not show this emotion on her face. As a noble girl from a first-rate family, she still had this kind of cultivation. I heard that you're also planning to go to the northern border of the Great Desolate Land this time. Have you formed a team yet? Can I be in the same group as you? As Liao Shuiqing spoke, she moved closer to Chu Luiyue. A strong and excessive fragrance of cosmetics rushed to the tip of Chu Luiyue's nose, almost choking him. Recently, she had either been collecting medicine in the Medicine Wind Valley or refining pills in the Jiuheng Mountain. She had been immersed in a faint bitter medicinal fragrance all day long. Suddenly changing this, she felt very uncomfortable. She restrained her expression and took half a step back without batting an eyelid. She smiled faintly. I appreciate Senior Sister Liao's kindness, but I've already chosen the people in the same group. As she spoke, she deliberately emphasized. It's the 3 people who came with me. I thought it was very obvious, but I didn't expect senior sister Liao to not notice. The smile on Liao Shuiqing's face suddenly disappeared. She crossed her arms in front of her and shrugged. Then, she quickly glanced behind Chu Luiyue. "Ah. Is that so? I thought you were going to team up with Senior Rongxiu. What's wrong? Didn't he come with you today?" It turned out that they were here for this. Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows slightly. She didn't need to look up to know how many pairs of eyes were staring at her. Of course, they were all waiting for her answer. Senior brother Rongxiu has no intention of participating in this mission. Chu Luiyue replied slowly. Many people instantly looked disappointed. After a moment of silence, some whispers could be heard. As expected. I told you he wouldn't come, yes. Senior brother Rongxiu has already left the academy for several years, how could he still be with us? Luo Shishir couldn't help but sneak a glance at Chu Luiyue before quickly retracting her gaze. Luo Yanming saw it clearly from the side and couldn't help but shake her head. It seems that fourth brother was right. Shishir really has some feelings for Chu Yu, but Chu Yu seems to be indifferent. I don't know if he really doesn't know or if he's pretending not to know. Luo Yanming thought in her heart, when there's time, I'll have to probe them separately. Chu Luiyue walked at the front and took the lead in the qualification check. The elder in charge was an acquaintance, Elder Wenxi. Elder Wenxi wasn't surprised to see him. He raised his chin, take out the black jade token. Chu Luiyue handed it over with both hands. Elder Wenxi touched his green jade token with it. Chu Luiyue saw a few lines of words appear on his black jade token. It seemed to be related to her current level of strength. Hiss, Elder Wenxi sucked in a breath of cold air, then suddenly raised his head and looked at Chu Luiyue suspiciously. When did this kid break through to this realm? I didn't hear any news at all. Those lines of words quickly disappeared. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but ask Elder Wenxi, am I considered qualified? Elder Wenxi wanted to knock her head with the token. Asking the obvious. Yes. If she didn't even pass this, then a large number of people in the academy would be stuck. Chu Luiyue smiled. Thank you, Elder Wenxi. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. They came every day to look, but the results were the same every day. Elder Bo Yen walked down the mountain. Call Chu Yu over. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1299. When she saw Elder Ouyang heading straight for her, Chu Luiyue had a bad premonition. Sure enough, after they met, Elder Ouyang only said a few words concisely. Chu Yu, follow me. Everyone's attention was attracted by this sudden scene. Many people were curious and surprised. Elder Ouyang was a weapon refiner and rarely came out. Why did he suddenly look for Chu Yu? Chu Luiyue paused. May I know why Elder Ouyang is looking for me? Elder Ouyang stared at her with an unfathomable gaze, as if he was considering whether her blank expression was real or fake. You'll know later. With that, Elder Ouyang turned and left. Chu Luiyue was about to follow when Luo Shishir couldn't help but tug at her. Chu Yu, she felt that something was amiss. Chu Luiyue shook her head. Don't worry. I'll be back soon. With that, she quickly followed Elder Ouyang's footsteps and left together. Only the onlookers were left looking at each other. Chu Luiyue followed Elder Ouyang to the foot of Thousand Wine Mountain. Elder Bo Yen was standing with his hands behind his back. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. As Thousand Wine Mountain had been closed recently, there were basically no people who came here. At this moment, there were only Chu Luiyue and the other two here. Chu Yu. Elder Bo Yen saw him and spoke first. Chu Luiyue immediately went forward. Elder Bo Yan, why are you looking for me? Elder Bo Yan looked at her with a sharp gaze, as if he wanted to look into her heart. What did you promise before? Chu Luiyue was confused, as if she didn't understand what was going on. Elder Bo Yan, what are you talking about? Elder Bo Yan snorted coldly. Don't say that the situation at Thousand Wine Mountain has nothing to do with you. This time, Chu Luiyue really didn't know what Elder Bo Yan was referring to. She vaguely guessed that it might have something to do with Dumpling, but she didn't know the specifics. Seeing that Chu Luiyue's expression did not seem to be fake, Elder Bo Yan's heart began to beat faster. Could it really have nothing to do with this brat? However, it was only after Chu Yu caused a ruckus at Thousand Wine Mountain that the spring became like this. This student is slow-witted, please enlighten me, Elder Bo Yan. Chu Luiyue asked cautiously. Elder Bo Yan stared at her and did not speak for a long while. The spring was of great importance. Now that it had suddenly become like this, it could not be easily leaked. How could he tell Chu Yu directly? Thus, the two sides entered a stalemate. Elder Ouyang couldn't stand it anymore and said, Chu Yu, when you were refining the artifact spirit that day, didn't you notice anything unusual? Maybe it wasn't Chu Yu's problem. Chu Luiyue shook his head. At that time, all of the students' attention was focused on that and had no time to care about anything else. That was true. Elder Ouyang and Elder Ouyang looked at each other, feeling a little worried. Bo Yan, Ouyang, you're looking for me. At this moment, a low and powerful laughter broke the silence. It was Shang Yusin. The two of them were smiling and seemed to be in a good mood. However, when he saw the three of them, he realized that something was amiss. Shang Yusin retracted the smile on his face and asked seriously, what's wrong? Ouyang, bring him up. Elder Bo Yan said. Elder Ouyang nodded and then brought the confused Shang Yusin into Thousand Wine Mountain again. After the two of them left, only Elder Bo Yan and Chu Luiyue were left staring at each other. Chu Yu, if you tell us the truth now, we can reduce your punishment. Elder Bo Yan said with a heavy heart. Chu Luiyue was now even more certain that there was a problem with the spring in Thousand Wine Mountain, but Dumpling was not exposed. Otherwise, Elder Bo Yan wouldn't have to test her so many times. Thus, she also refused to let go of the matter. This student really doesn't understand, please, give me some hints. Elder Bo Yan was so angry that his heart choked. He could tell that Chu Yu didn't fall for his tricks at all. Although this kid was only 16 or 17 years old and looked harmless to humans and animals, he was actually very mature and experienced, making him difficult to fathom. After all, he was brought out by Rong Xiao and was as troublesome as him. Elder Bo Yan's expression became dangerous. Only the three of you were present at Thousand Wine Mountain that day. This matter must have something to do with one of you. Which of the three of you do you think it is? Chu Luiyue lowered her eyes and smiled bitterly. This student doesn't even know what happened, so how can I admit it? Are you sure it's me? Of course. Elder Bo Yan's expression couldn't be clearer. Ouyang and Shang Yusin knew how important the spring was and definitely wouldn't do anything. The only possibility, isn't it Chu Yu? Everything will be clear when they come down. Chu Luiyue glanced at the mountain. She couldn't see anything through the barrier, but she could vaguely feel that Dumpling's condition wasn't bad. After a human and a magical beast formed a contract, there would be a subtle connection between them. After Dumpling stayed here, she seemed to have entered a stable and calm state. This was also one of the reasons why she felt slightly more at ease. Dumpling had already stayed inside for more than the month that the legendary three-eyed eagle said, and she didn't know when she would come out. Bo Yan. After a while, Elder Ouyang and Elder Bo Yan returned. Elder Bo Yan looked over and saw that Elder Ouyang's expression was a little strange. He frowned. What's wrong? What did you find out? Elder Ouyang glanced at Chu Luyue. Elder Bo Yen said in a deep voice. Chu Yu, are you still not going to admit it? Before Chu Luyue could say anything, she heard Elder Ouyang hurriedly say from the side. Chu Yu isn't to blame for this. What? A trace of shock flashed across Elder Bo Yan's face. Afraid that he would misunderstand, Elder Ouyang hurriedly explained. Then. All right. All right. Elder Bo Yan was stunned for a moment, then he immediately understood what he meant. You'll know when you go up. In front of Chu Luyue, Elder Ouyang couldn't be too direct. How could he explain this? An hour ago, when he and Bo Yan went up, the spring was still a pool of stagnant water. In the end, when he and Shang Yusin went over, they saw that the spring had already recovered. Hearing him say this, Elder Bo Yan didn't believe it and went up the mountain. After a while, he returned with an indescribable expression on his face. Shang Yusin couldn't help but laugh. Hey, it's clearly nothing, why are you so nervous? You called Chu Yu over before you even found out, look at how scared the child is. Ever since Chu Luyue showed him the Scarlet Heaven sword, Shang Yusin's attitude towards Chu Luyue was extremely good. At this moment, he also stood up to speak up for him. Elder Bo Yan and Elder Ouyang looked at each other in confusion. Could it be, it really had nothing to do with him? Forget it, you can go back. Chu Luyue heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1300. That student will go back first. Chu Luyue bowed respectfully and left. She did not look back as she left. Looking at her receding figure, the remaining three elders had different expressions on their faces. Bo Yan, it's not appropriate for you to do this. Shang Yusin touched his chin. What if this child is traumatized? Elder Bo Yan snorted. He's not that weak. But you shouldn't have come to such a conclusion when you're not sure. Shang Yusin's expression became more serious. Elder Bo Yan was startled, then shook his head. I'm in the wrong. Actually, you can't blame Bo Yan entirely. Yusin, you don't know, but during that period of time, there was no movement in the spring. Bo Yan and I observed for a long time before we decided to ask Chu Yu. Who knew that when you came today, it actually, Elder Ouyang frowned, he could not figure it out. Maybe it was because Chu Yu was refining the weapon soul, which affected it a little. But now that it's recovered, you don't have to worry too much. Although Shang Yusin had not been here for a long time, he believed that Ouyang was telling the truth. After thinking about it, they were still too concerned, even a little too much. Elder Bo Yan stroked his beard and sighed helplessly. If not for that kid always doing things, I wouldn't. Shang Yusin choked, he felt that it made sense. Since all the problems have been solved, there's no need to be so nervous. If you're still worried, just observe for a few more days. Elder Bo Yan nodded. Then let's wait until the day we go to the north. You're going too? Shang Yusin was surprised. You're not staying in the academy. When the dean was not around, Elder Bo Yan had always been in charge of the academy. Even if there was something, he would send the other elders out. This time, Elder Bo Yan actually wanted to lead someone personally. It was really surprising. This is a matter of great importance, and everyone is vying for supremacy. It's safer for me to go. Also, Elder Bo Yan frowned. This time, we might be able to find the dean's whereabouts. Chu Luyue once again returned to the Green Darkness Square. Many people looked over curiously with different expressions. Chu Luyue's expression was calm. He ignored all of them and walked straight back to Luo Shishir and the others. Only then did he realize that there was something wrong with their expressions. What's going on? Chu Luiyue asked curiously. Shuo Xing sighed heavily. I didn't get chosen. Luo Yanming said, and me. Chu Luiyue was very surprised. Where's Shishir? Luo Shishir pursed her lips. I've tried. But. However, she couldn't bring herself to be happy about this outcome. Their original plan was for the four of them to go together, but now it was definitely impossible. Chu Luiyue suddenly understood. No wonder the atmosphere was so gloomy. Hey! Actually, it's not a big deal. Previously, I felt that I might not have made it. There are so many outstanding students in the academy, it's normal that I didn't make it. Shuo Sheng was the first to get excited. He looked at Chu Luiyue and grinned. Chu Yu, you have to perform well this time. Do your best for your brother. I'm still waiting to bask in your glory when you come back. It was true that he was disappointed and regretful, but the outcome was already out, so it was useless to be sad. Although Shuo Sheng was usually carefree, there was one advantage to this: he was big-hearted. After being sad, he still liked to eat and drink, and he wouldn't take it to heart. Such a person lived a more open and comfortable life. Luo Yanming sighed in his heart. He was actually still a little upset, but there were more important things that were worth his attention. Chu Yu, I'll have to trouble you to take care of Shishir in the future. She rarely went out before, so there are many things that she doesn't know. If she causes you trouble. That's for sure. Chu Luiyue interrupted him with a smile and said seriously. Shishir is my friend, so I'll naturally protect her. Only then did Luo Yanming feel relieved. I'll go with you. At this moment, someone suddenly walked over from the side. Fourth brother. Luo Shishir and the other two were surprised to see Luo Yanlin, especially Luo Shishir. She took a few steps forward, grabbed his arm, and asked, Fourth brother, are you going too? I've never heard him mention it before. Luo Yanlin laughed. I should be the one asking you this. You've only been here for a few months. You dare to take such a big risk. I've already discussed it with a few friends. Shishir, you and Chu Yu can come with us. Luo Shishir looked at Chu Luiyue inquisitively. Luo Yanlin made another bet in his heart. Thank you, senior brother Luo. Chu Luiyue smiled and cupped his hands. Luo Yanlin didn't want to talk to her anymore, but for the sake of his sister's face, he could only say, the academy is planning to set off tomorrow. You guys go back and prepare today. Yes. Chu Luiyue went straight back to Mount Johing. It wasn't until she entered the room and locked the doors and windows that she pressed one hand on her chest and let out a long breath. Fortunately, it was scary but not dangerous. If she had done anything wrong today, she probably wouldn't have been able to come back. You still know how to be afraid. Dugu Mabao's voice suddenly sounded. Chu Luiyue was shocked. Only then did she see that Dugu Mabao was already in the room. His strength was much higher than Chu Luiyue's. It was easy for him to hide his tracks and aura in front of her. Big baby, you scared me. Chu Luiyue closed her eyes and calmed her wild heartbeat. Then, she froze and looked at the opposite side suspiciously. You know. Dugu Mabao didn't say anything. He only raised his hand and threw something over. Chu Luiyue caught it subconsciously. Smack. It was soft and wet to the touch. Chu Luiyue took a closer look, and the corner of her eyes twitched violently. Tuan, dumpling. This red palm-sized lump, if it wasn't dumpling, who else could it be? However, at this moment, it seemed to be sleeping. Its head was buried in one of its wings, and no matter how Dugu Mabao swung it around, it didn't show any signs of waking up. Its body was covered in water, and its fluffy feathers were stuck tightly to its body. It looked a little bald. Of course, there was a more direct word to describe it: ugly. Other than the occasional flash of silver lightning on its body, it looked a little unusual. Chu Luiyue didn't want to recognize this as her contracted magical beast. It soaked in the spring for too long and got drunk. Dugu Mabao said coldly. Chu Luiyue was speechless. Normal people won't get drunk after drinking the spring water, but magical beasts can't avoid it if they drink too much. Not to mention, it swallowed so much Tianlei's power. Dugu Mabao raised its eyes slightly and looked at Chu Luiyue. Do you know how much Tianlei's power accumulated in the spring for years has been consumed by it? If I didn't fish it out in time, who knows how long it would have slept there. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1301. Every time Dugu Mabao said a word, Chu Luiyue's heart would beat violently. In the end, her face turned slightly hot, and a rare trace of embarrassment appeared on her face. Dumpling, who was in her hands, was obviously cold all over, but at this moment, it seemed to have become a hot potato. If not for the fact that it was her contracted magical beast, Chu Luiyue would have really lost control and handed it over to Dugu Mabao for him to deal with. Suddenly, an idea flashed in her mind. So, when Elder Bo Yen and the rest called me over today, it was also because of your help. Dugu Mabao snorted coldly. I've already warned you not to casually go to Thousand Wine Mountain. Did you turn a deaf ear to my words? Debao. I knew you were the best. However, Chu Luiyue couldn't hold herself back as she rushed forward and hugged him. It's all thanks to you today. Otherwise, I would have been finished. Dugu Mabao's voice came out from Chu Luiyue's shoulder with difficulty. It was muffled, but it was extremely dangerous. If you don't let go of me, I'll let you know what it means to be finished. Chu Luiyue hurriedly let go of him. Looking closely, Dugu Mabao's hair was already messed up like a chicken's nest. Coupled with his cold and angry little face, it was simply perfect. Chu Luiyue coughed and carefully stretched out her hands to help him comb his hair. Cough, look at your hair, it's messy. Dugu Mabao stared at her, a demonic light flashing in his purple eyes. Chu Luiyue tactfully retracted her hand and explained embarrassedly. It's all my fault for not being able to stop Dumpling at that time and allowing it to run in. After that, I was busy refining my weapon spirit and forgot about it for a moment. Later on, when I thought about it, Elder Bo Yen and the others had already sealed the mountain. If you really can't do it, Chu Luiyue seemed to have made up her mind. She placed Tuanzi on the table and pushed it in Dugu Mabao's direction as she reluctantly said, you can punish me however you want. Dumpling, who was still in a drunken stupor, moved uneasily, as if she knew that she had been ruthlessly abandoned. Chu Luiyue could no longer care about it. He clasped his hands together and smiled at Dugu Mabao. Debao, don't be angry. Dugu Mabao turned his head away. Every time he saw her like this, his heart softened easily. Definitely not this time. After calming himself down, he said, Bo Yen is right about one thing. If you don't learn your lesson and continue to cause trouble without restraint, sooner or later you will cause trouble. Chu Luiyue looked pitiful. Then how do you want to punish me? Play chess with me, or fight with me? When he said the last few words, the corner of Chu Luiyue's eyes twitched. This might really not work, Dugu Mabao said coldly. For the next period of time, other than cultivating here in peace, you are not allowed to do anything else. I will set up a barrier here. You can only leave when you break it. Chu Luiyue was stunned. But the academy is leaving for the northern region of the primordial wilderness tomorrow. Dugu Mabao glanced at her. Just say that you can't go. There are so many elders and students in the academy. You're not the only one. Only then did Chu Luiyue realize that Dugu Mabao was serious. He really wanted to do this. But Chu Luiyue was a little conflicted. I've already made an appointment with them, and I've already passed the examination. If I give up just like that, she wasn't looking for any treasures or opportunities. She was purely worried. The real heavenly square cauldron was with her. The mastermind had deliberately planned such a big scheme. If she didn't go, however, Dugu Mabao's attitude was very firm. He waved his sleeve, and a huge silver Xian formation appeared in front of her. It quickly covered the entire room. Chu Luiyue wanted to persuade him again. Debao, if you want to punish me, I accept. But can you wait for me to come back? When you break this Xian formation, I naturally won't stop you. After Dugu Mabao finished speaking, his figure instantly disappeared from the room. Chu Luiyue. After sitting quietly in the room for a while, Chu Luiyue finally realized what had happened. She glanced at Dumpling, who was still sleeping on the table. At this moment, the water on its body had decreased a little. However, silver Tianlei could still be seen flashing across its body. Its pair of beautiful and cunning eyes were tightly shut. There were no signs of it waking up. Chu Luiyue rubbed her forehead. She felt that it was a little strange. She and Dugu Mabao had known each other for so long. Although he would often get angry because of her teasing, most of the time, he wouldn't really get angry. Even if he was occasionally strict, it was only when he was teaching her cultivation. However, today, his reaction was really a little off. Was it really because the secret of the spring on Thousand Wine Mountain was too important that he was acting like this? However, if that was the case, he didn't even need to intervene. He could just let Elder Bo Yen and the rest deal with her. Now, Dugu Mabao brought Dumpling out and erased those traces. However, he locked her up here, Chu Luiyue thought for a while. She kept Dumpling and tried to walk out of the door. When she walked around the room, everything was normal. Then, she pushed the door open and walked forward cautiously. After taking 20 steps, Chu Luiyue felt an invisible force blocking her path. She stopped and turned around to look at the room. She could vaguely see streaks of light flickering on the ground inside. This was the power of the Xian formation that he left behind. Chu Luiyue tried a few times. She realized that she couldn't force her way through, so she gave up. She returned to the room and closed the door and windows. She started to focus on studying the Xian formation on the ground. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1302. The night passed in the blink of an eye. The morning sun shone in through the window. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes and simply lay back. Phew, Debao is determined. This Xian formation was the most difficult one she had seen so far. It was even more difficult than the one left behind by Dugu Mabao. She hadn't even cracked that one yet, let alone this one. Chu Luiyue rubbed her temples. After studying for an entire night, she didn't make any progress. She was almost certain that she wouldn't be able to get out today. Suddenly, a fluctuation came from her dantian. An idea popped up in Chu Luiyue's mind, and she summoned Tuanzi. The commotion just now had come from its body. Compared to yesterday, the number of Tianlei flashing on its body had decreased by a lot. It should have been absorbed by it bit by bit. However, its eyes were tightly shut and it still didn't show any signs of waking up. Chu Luiyue picked it up and looked around carefully. Yesterday, Dumpling's entire body was wet, so she couldn't tell. Now, she realized that the color of Dumpling's feathers had become much darker than before. At a glance, it looked like a burning red flame, rich and intense. Chu Luiyue remembered that it had only soaked in the spring for a short while before falling asleep for a long time. This time, she really didn't know when it would wake up. But when it wakes up this time, it should be when the power of its bloodline is completely activated, right? Thinking of this, Chu Liuyue's heart finally felt a lot more comforted. Chu Yu. Chu Yu. Luo Shishir's voice came from outside. Chu Liuyue sighed, turned over, packed up, and walked outside. She immediately saw Luo Shishir, who was hovering outside the barrier. Chu Yu, we should set off. Many people have already gathered at Qingming Square. Luo Shishir waved at Chu Liuyue. Chu Liuyue took a few steps forward and stood at a safe distance. Shishir, please help me apply for leave. Just say that I'm not feeling well and I'm afraid I won't be able to go this time. Luo Shishir was shocked. Are you sick? Is it serious? I'll help you ask the elders to come over and take a look. Chu Liuyue hurriedly said, no need. It's an old problem. I've already taken some medicine. I'll be fine after resting for a while. However, in this state, he definitely could not go to the northern region of the Great Desolate Land. I'm really sorry. Luo Shishir saw that Chu Liuyue's complexion was indeed a little haggard, and her heart was a little worried. However, seeing her resolute attitude, she agreed. Then I'll help you talk to the elders. You take care of yourself. If he couldn't hold on any longer, he had to seek help from the elders. Chu Liuyue smiled gratefully. Thank you. Many people were shocked when they heard that Chu Liuyue had left the team because she was unwell. After all, such an opportunity was extremely rare. It would be a pity to give it up. Even Elder Bo Yen was a little surprised. Chapter 1303. Remember, love net, in 1 second and provide you with interesting reading. The primordial north was a dangerous place in the divine ruins world. The extremely harsh environment and perilous checkpoints made it a barren land that countless cultivators trembled in fear at the mere mention of its name. However, because of the news that the heavenly square cauldron was about to appear there, countless first-rate families and sects in the divine ruins world had sent people there. An intense battle was about to break out. Compared to the other families and sects, Lingshao College did not have that many loyal people who could rush to the front to open up new territories. However, they had a huge advantage. Lingshao College had the only teleportation formation in the divine ruins world that could directly lead to the primordial north. This teleportation array was personally built by the founder of the Spirit Firmament Academy 10,000 years ago, which was also the first dean. However, as time passed, the primordial north became more and more dangerous. Lingshao College no longer sent people there, and even this teleportation formation was abandoned for a time. Unexpectedly, it came in handy this time. Inside the teleportation formation, there were bright lights floating. Compared to the other teleportation formations, it was much brighter and more spacious. Moreover, the surrounding spatial turbulence was almost impossible to feel. It was very stable inside. Some of the elders were at the front, while others were at the back to ensure the safety of the students. At first, everyone was still a little reserved and nervous. The whole place was very quiet. After a period of time, everyone gradually relaxed, and the atmosphere became much more lively. Occasionally, some people could be heard whispering. This teleportation formation is so stable. I've never seen such a powerful teleportation formation before. I heard that it was personally built by the first president. After 10,000 years, the elders of the college would regularly maintain it. Of course, it's extraordinary. Hiss. How much manpower and material resources would this require? It's shocking just thinking about it. I heard that in the entire Divine Ruins world, this is the only teleportation formation that directly leads to the primordial north. If other people want to go, they have to change locations several times. In the end, they have to walk through the Red Valley Beach before they can truly enter the primordial north. I heard that place is the burial ground of many cultivators. If I can really see the heavenly square cauldron appear this time, I'm willing to suffer even more. That's one of the 10 great sacred artifacts. The 10 great saint artifacts are scattered all over the world. So far, only 5 of them have been clearly found. How could he not know the grievances and discomfort in her heart? After all, she was his disciple, so he still felt sorry for her. Ziyuan, have you thoroughly studied the Xian formation I showed you some time ago? Jiang Ji1 hurriedly said, I'm almost done. You can't be almost done. You have to study it thoroughly. Elder Danqing said with a heavy heart. You are a martial artist and a mystic master. You are very talented in both aspects. If you want to develop in a balanced way, you naturally have to put in more effort than others. Especially the cultivation of a mystic master. You can't make do with it at all. Thank you for your teachings, Master. Jiang Ji1's face was a little hot. She had indeed neglected her cultivation during this period of time. Because she could not calm down, she had actually not looked at a Xian formation for about a month. If Elder Danqing were to test her on the spot, she would definitely fail. You have always been smart and sensible. I believe you understand some things even if I don't say them. Elder Danqing paused. I still have high hopes for you. You are already a level 9 mystic master now. If you can break through as soon as possible, you will surpass many people. In the academy or the entire divine ruins world, strength is the most important. Do you understand? Jiang Ji1 lowered her eyes slightly and nodded vigorously. Ziyuan understands. Also, you have been stuck in the demigod realm for some time. Take advantage of this trip to the northern region of the primeval desolate land and strive to break through in one go. Jiang Ji1 clenched her fists. Definitely. Lingshao College. Jiuheng Mountain. Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged in the room. Her expression was serious, and there was a rare hint of nervousness in her eyes. She raised her hand and drew something in the air in front of her. It was a small Xian formation. If someone was here at this moment, they would realize that this small Xian formation was extremely similar to the one quietly shining on the floor of the room. Chu Luiyue was trying to copy this Xian formation. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1304. She had tried many times before, but all of them ended in failure. However, she had never given up. Even if she was only slightly more accurate than before, she still did not feel tired. As Chu Luiyue had been in a tense state for a long time and spent a lot of energy researching Xian formations, she was actually very tired at this point, and her eyes were bloodshot. However, the feeling of being on the verge of breaking it and the urge to do so had been supporting her. Her surroundings were quiet. Chu Luiyue could even hear her own heart beating. She could hear the sound of blood flowing in her ears. Her hand started to tremble slightly. It was extremely difficult for her to forcefully construct a Xian formation of this level with her current realm. The force in her body was being consumed crazily. Her vision was also turning black, as if she was going to collapse in the next second. However, her heart was incomparably resolute. Flames seemed to be burning in her black jade-like eyes. Finally, her hand slowly landed on the last stroke. The Xian formation in front of her was completely outlined. Buzz! A subtle fluctuation spread out from the small Xian formation. Chu Luiyue's chest shook. A sweet and fishy taste instantly filled her mouth. She forcefully swallowed the blood and quickly adjusted her breathing. She urged the force in her body to surge. The Xian formation was only half complete. If she wanted to completely decipher the Xian formation, there were still important steps to take. She could not make any mistakes. Chu Luiyue concentrated and gathered all the force in her limbs and bones into her palms. Then, she poured it into the Xian formation in front of her. The light on it gradually became brighter and more dazzling. The fluctuation on it also became bigger and bigger. However, the force in her body was almost exhausted very quickly. Her previous attempts had already consumed a large amount of her strength. She was truly an arrow at the end of its flight. Chu Luyue hesitated for a moment. Finally, she mobilized the divine power stored in the water droplet. A ferocious aura instantly gushed out from her body. Chu Luyue's palms shone brightly. Following the continuous consumption of that divine power, the Xian formation in front of her finally expanded to the height of half a person. This was an octagonal Xian formation. Streams of light crisscrossed on it, forming complicated patterns. Ordinary people would feel dizzy just by looking at it. If they looked at it for too long, it was not impossible for them to faint. Chu Luyue held his breath and extended his right hand forward, gently covering the center of the profound formation. Wang! At this moment, the Xian formation on the ground that was flickering with a lustrous radiance suddenly seemed to have sensed the summoning of some kind of power, and slowly rose up from the ground. It was smooth and resplendent, majestic and impressive. There were only incomparably exquisite Xian formations and numerous prescriptions. The things that appeared were obviously better than what she had seen before. In Chu Luyue's memory, she had never seen these things before. However, these contents appeared clearly in her mind. From these broken memories, Chu Luyue seemed to have glimpsed a corner of the past that she had forgotten. She turned her gaze and looked at the Eastern Emperor Bell Tower. Dignified, solemn, dignified. She thought of the green cloud ranking that appeared on the black wall. So, she was already a Xian King Master and a doctor. I just don't know. Is this the end? Medicine Wind Valley. Elder Meng Yi was leisurely lying down to rest. Suddenly, his ears twitched and he opened half an eye. A familiar young man's figure appeared not far away. It was Chu Yu. He made a sound of surprise and sat up. Chu Yu, why are you here today? I heard that your health isn't good, so I didn't follow Bo Yen and the others to the northern border of the great desolate land. Is your body better now? Chu Luyue turned around and smiled brightly at Elder Meng Yi. Thank you for your concern, Elder Meng Yi. This student's body is already fine. Elder Meng Yi was slightly relieved. He chuckled and waved his cattail leaf fan. Why, your body has just recovered, and you're here to pick herbs again. Chu Luyue's eyes flashed, she pursed her lips and smiled, as if she was a little embarrassed. That's right. Elder Meng Yi wouldn't think that this student is annoying, right? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1305. Ha! How could that be? Elder Meng Yi fanned himself vigorously. Don't worry, I haven't had the time to send the bill for the herbs you collected here to Wanzheng. It won't be too late to show it to him when he comes back. During this period of time, just take whatever herbs you want. As he spoke, he smacked his lips, narrowed his eyes, and said leisurely. All these years, he only accepted you as his disciple. Wouldn't he dote on you like the apple of his eye? Hee, I reckon he wants to leave all the good stuff for you. What are these herbs worth? Chu Luyue's mouth twitched. She could hear a hint of schadenfreude in his voice. She bowed politely. Thank you, Elder. With that, she walked to the side and began to pick the herbs seriously. Elder Meng Yi lay back down. When he thought of Wanzhang's expression when he came back and saw the bill, he could not help but whistle. That scene would be very exciting. Chu Luyue did not lack herbs. When Rong Xiu gave her the universe ring, there was already a lot stored in it. Later on, she obtained a lot from different channels. In addition, after entering the academy, she had come to the Medicine Wind Valley many times. She definitely had enough medicinal herbs. However, ever since she thought of those Xian formations and prescriptions, Chu Luyue felt that she was lacking a lot. In addition, she had flipped through the physician's medicine scripture during this period of time. She really needed to come here to collect more herbs. Soon, Chu Luiyue picked a lot of herbs again. Unknowingly, she walked to the edge of the garden again. A faint pressure came from the front. Chu Luiyue paused in her actions and looked up. The barrier of the Medicine Wind Valley was not far in front of her. The sky gradually darkened, and the barrier shone with a faint glow. An impulse suddenly rose in Chu Luiyue's heart. She wanted to enter the herb garden to take a look. Ever since she confirmed her identity, she had thought of this more than once. However, it was too difficult, so she had not been able to do it. On one hand, the location of the herb garden was extremely special. It was almost impossible to enter it without attracting anyone's attention. On the other hand, she had repeatedly made mistakes in the academy. If she was caught red-handed again, it would probably cause a lot of trouble. However, it was impossible to completely suppress this thought. Instead, it became more and more obvious as time passed. Especially today, after breaking through to the mystic Imperial Master Realm, this kind of impulse surged to the peak. At this moment, she suddenly felt a gaze on her back. That was Elder Meng Ye's gaze. Chu Luiyue calmly picked up a few medicinal herbs around him. He wandered around for a while and then packed up his things to settle the bill. Only then did the seemingly solid gaze gradually weaken its power. Elder Meng Ye looked lazy, but he was actually very cautious and meticulous. Everything in the vast Medicine Wind Valley was under his control. Trying to do anything under his nose was simply courting death. After Chu Luiyue accounted for all the medicinal ingredients, he respectfully bid farewell and left the Medicine Wind Valley. Elder Meng Ye looked at her departing figure and scratched his chin with the cattail leaf fan before lying back down. By the time Chu Luiyue returned to Mount Jiuheng, the sky was already completely dark. She meditated and cultivated quietly in her room, adjusting her condition to the best. Late at night, Chu Luiyue opened her eyes and changed into a long black robe, covering herself up tightly. She glanced outside. The full moon was bright and clear like water. It was so quiet that only the sound of the wind passing through the mountains could be heard. She raised her hand. On her wrist, the light pink peach blossom slowly bloomed. In the next moment, her figure disappeared from the room. This was the time when the night was at its thickest. The entire academy was silent. Chu Luiyue's figure appeared in a dark corner. The thick trees beside her completely covered her shadow. There was no one around. After staying in the academy for so long, Chu Luiyue had already been to almost all the places where students could go. Now that she was very familiar with the entire academy's terrain, she could easily avoid the places where people would appear and take the remote paths. She looked around and confirmed the direction. Then, with a thought, she quickly left. After a few turns, Chu Luiyue finally entered the Mystic Master area and arrived at the foot of a mountain very close to the center. She looked up and suddenly felt as if her heart had been hit by something. This is it. Chu Luiyue said silently in her heart. This place had appeared many times in her memory and had a special meaning to her. Mount Yuheng. The mountain peak was tall and steep. On one side was a mountain range that extended downwards, and on the other was a steep cliff. At a glance, it looked as if someone had slashed down from the sky with a sword, directly splitting it into this state. On the cliff, there was an octagonal pavilion. Chu Luiyue's breathing stopped. The scene that had only appeared in her mind appeared before her eyes just like that. She clenched her fists and walked forward. However, she had only taken a few steps when she felt an obscure yet powerful pressure. Chu Luiyue frowned. Only then did she realize that there was a barrier around Mount Yuheng. And its level was not low. According to the scene in her memory, the medicinal garden was directly opposite Mount Yuheng, separated by a river. It was not possible to go over from Medicine Wind Valley, so this was the only way left. But she did not expect there to be a barrier here as well. Chu Luiyue did not dare to move carelessly, afraid that she would accidentally cause some commotion and attract people over. If that happened, she would not be able to explain herself. However, she was extremely unwilling to give up just like that and turn around to leave. Just as Chu Luiyue was worrying about this, two people's voices suddenly came from behind her. "Say, do you think the elders have arrived?" Chu Luiyue was shocked. She quickly hid behind a huge rock at the side and hid her aura at the same time. Looking at the time, it should be about time. After all, our academy has a teleportation formation that allows us to go directly. Isn't it much more convenient than others? The people who spoke seemed to be two young men. They should be students of the academy. But Chu Luiyue found their voices unfamiliar. She probably did not know them. That's true. Maybe not long later, they will be able to see the legendary Heavenly Square Cauldron with their own eyes. Unfortunately, we are not strong enough and do not even have the qualifications to go. Sigh. Let's cultivate diligently. There might be other opportunities in the future. In the end, it's still because we are not talented enough. Say, if we had half of Senior Rongxiu's talent, we would be better than now, right? He has Mount Yuheng all to himself. Chu Luiyue was shocked. Her body suddenly fell backward uncontrollably. Buzz! Mount Yuheng's barrier shook violently. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1306. This movement instantly alerted the two people who were talking. Who is it? Chu Luiyue's heart felt like it was being squeezed tightly by something. If they found out, she wouldn't be able to explain herself. When they didn't hear a response, the two students looked at each other with solemn expressions. One of them called out loudly, "Who's there? Why are you sneaking around? Come out. Otherwise, we won't be polite." Fine beads of sweat appeared on Chu Luiyue's forehead. She looked at the peach blossom on her wrist. If they got any closer, she could only swoosh. The sound of something breaking through the air was heard. It was the man who spoke who threw a short sword first. "Come out." The other person had already rushed forward. Chu Luiyue gritted her teeth, circulated the force in her body, and prepared to leave. However, at this moment, Chu Luiyue suddenly felt that something was wrong behind her. She subconsciously looked back and instantly widened her eyes in shock. Because, behind her, Jadeite Mountain's barrier suddenly cracked open. Thud! The short sword stabbed into the rock in front of Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue steeled her heart and directly flashed in. The black figure instantly disappeared on the spot. The moment she left, one of the men had already rushed over and looked directly behind the boulder. The tense expression on his face instantly froze. The other man also followed at this moment and asked, "Who is it?" The man who came first frowned and shook his head at him. "No one. No one. How is that possible?" The man who spoke pulled out his dagger and looked behind the boulder. "I clearly felt that there was someone here just now. And there was also a fluctuation in the barrier just now, wasn't there? But there's really no one here. I didn't see anyone escape just now. This, and, the fluctuation in the barrier has already calmed down. Then what's going on? Could it be that both of us saw wrongly?" The two of them were silent for a moment and carefully looked around, but still didn't find anything unusual. This made them somewhat discouraged, and they gradually began to suspect that they had guessed wrongly. Maybe we really did make a mistake. Jadeite Mountain's enchantment is extremely sturdy. Normal people wouldn't be able to enter. One of the men whispered and shook his head. "Forget it, let's go back." The two of them searched to no avail. In the end, they left regretfully and puzzledly. Hearing their footsteps getting further and further away, Chu Luiyue finally exhaled slowly. She glanced back. The transparent barrier had already returned to normal, and no one could tell that someone had just passed through it. Chu Luiyue looked at his own body in disbelief. She actually came in just like that. When the barrier came into contact with her, not only did it not resist, it even opened and let her in. Could it be that this barrier could sense her aura and power? Chu Luiyue pondered for a moment and decided to put this matter aside for now. He raised his eyes and looked around. Soon, she found the way up the mountain according to her vague memory. She calmed herself down and walked forward. Unlike many other mountains in the academy, Jadeite Mountain was quite exquisite. Although it was steep and tall, the exquisiteness and layout of the mountain seemed to have been carefully arranged by someone. It was pleasing to the eye and very pleasing to the eye. Neatly chiseled steps extended up the mountain. Chu Luiyue walked up the steps, looking at the scenery on both sides from time to time. The familiar feeling in her heart grew stronger. She had indeed been here before. Chu Luiyue thought about it as she walked. With the real scene in front of her eyes, the originally blurry images gradually became clearer. Finally, Chu Luiyue arrived at the top of the mountain. An antique octagonal pavilion stood beside the cliff. Inside the pavilion, there was a stone table and 2 stone stools. On the stone table, there was a chessboard, and on each side was a chess jar. Everything was exactly the same as the scene in her memory. Chu Luiyue suddenly felt an indescribable feeling in her heart. She walked over step by step, and almost instinctively sat down on one of the stone stools. The chessboard was as clean as new, and the chess jar was well preserved. Everything was as if no one had ever left. Chu Luiyue reached out, as if wanting to touch it. But halfway through, she hesitated and stopped. Homesickness was probably what it felt like to be close to home. The scene that she had imagined countless times finally happened, but she suddenly didn't dare to do anything, as if she was afraid that she would disturb something. A gust of wind blew over from the mountains, bringing with it an extremely faint bitter fragrance of herbs. Chu Luiyue looked up. Under the bright moon, the world was clear and bright. Under the cliff, the river surged, and on the opposite side, there were layers upon layers of mountains. And in between those mountains, there was a unique scenery. It was a herb garden. A layer of barrier covered it, and from the outside, it couldn't be seen clearly. Only a vague outline could be seen. But even so, it was not hard to imagine what kind of lush scenery it was inside. Chu Luiyue was a little dazed for a moment. This feeling was too familiar and too natural. For a moment, she almost thought that she had been here all this time, and had never left. Every blade of grass, every tree, every table, and every stool here was the same as before, without a speck of dust. Chu Luiyue closed her eyes. After pausing for a moment, she finally got up, tipped her toes, and flew forward. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1307. The night sky was silent. Chu Luiyue moved like a ghost and soon arrived at a mountain on the opposite side. Standing there, she finally saw the appearance of the herb garden surrounded by the mountains. What she saw made her hold her breath. She didn't blink, as if she was afraid of missing something. This herb garden was actually a depression in the middle of the surrounding mountains. But for some reason, its altitude was relatively high. It was basically halfway up these mountains. Vast, atmospheric, and full of vitality. This was Chu Luiyue's first impression of it. A layer of fog-like barrier completely enveloped it. Just now, when she was standing on Mount Yuheng and looking over here, Chu Luiyue could only see a blurry mist because of the distance. But now that she was standing closer, it was much clearer. Chu Luiyue could even vaguely see some medicinal herbs planted inside. With a single glance, she understood that the rumors she had heard from Zhong Sun back then were not false. Because the medicinal herbs she could identify were all extremely precious and rare. Even though there was a barrier between them, Chu Luiyue could still smell the fragrance that was spreading out from it. It was somewhat similar to the medicine Wind Valley, but not the same. The fragrance of the medicinal herbs was mostly bitter. However, the smell in this herb garden had a hint of sweetness. Suddenly, her gaze focused. Looking over, she saw a large number of blooming dancing lotuses. They swayed with the wind, graceful and beautiful. A trace of doubt flashed in Chu Luiyue's eyes. These were all planted by her. Although she liked dancing lotuses, it was extremely troublesome to take care of them, and their flowering period was very short. According to her personality, it didn't seem like she would have the patience and energy to do such a thing. She walked a little further before she saw 2 rattan chairs by the side of the lake. Chu Luiyue was slightly stunned. One of them should be hers. Then, what about the second one? Before she could figure out this question, a fluctuation suddenly came from the barrier of the herb garden. Chu Luiyue was shocked. This time, she didn't touch the barrier. Why did it suddenly move? The next moment, a trace of vigilance suddenly appeared in her heart, and she quickly looked in the other direction of the herb garden. Someone opened the barrier and walked in. From the looks of it, they seemed to have come from the medicine Wind Valley. Chu Luiyue immediately retreated and hid himself. She felt that she should check the almanac before going out today. To think that he would meet so many people along the way at this time. She fixed her eyes on that person and found the person's figure was somewhat familiar. After looking carefully, she noticed that the person was actually Elder Meng Yi. At this moment, he was holding a palm leaf fan in one hand and walking barefoot into the herb garden. He walked over with familiarity, then stood beside a large patch of medicinal herbs and rolled up his sleeves and trousers. Chu Luiyue suddenly guessed something and his heart skipped a beat. Sure enough, in the next moment, she saw Elder Meng Yi personally go down to take care of the medicinal herbs. Chu Luiyue sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at the scene in disbelief. Elder Meng Yi is helping me manage the herb garden. Elder Meng Yi was a Xian master and also a celestial physician, so he could do these things with ease. And looking at the number of herbs, it didn't seem like it was the first time he had done this. Looking at the figure who was bending over and seriously pulling out the withered medicinal herbs, Chu Luiyue's emotions were very complicated. She had never imagined that she would see such a scene when she came here today. Elder Meng Yi is not only in charge of the medicine Wind Valley, but also this herb garden. According to everyone, she had already left for several years, and even her name had almost become a taboo. She originally thought that she had been deliberately forgotten. Who would have thought? Phew. Elder Meng Yi finally finished taking care of the large patch of medicinal herbs. He straightened up, held his waist, and let out a long breath. That girl ran off to have fun by herself and left this mess to this old man. Yet, the herbs planted here were all extremely precious, and all of them needed to be taken care of. If it weren't for that girl, he wouldn't have bothered. The tip of Chu Luiyue's nose twitched. Elder Meng Yi grumbled for a while, then walked to another area and repeated what he had just done. After tossing and turning for about an hour, he finally stopped. He looked around with satisfaction and clapped his hands. Let's see if I don't collect the debt from you for these few years later. With that, Elder Meng Yi finally turned around and left. The barrier sealed. Everything returned to normal. Just as Chu Luiyue was about to go forward, a fluctuation suddenly came from her dantian. She was shocked and realized that the movement came from Dumpling. It seemed very unusual. It has already begun to fuse with the power of the Tianlei that it swallowed and is preparing to activate the power of its bloodline. The legendary three-eyed eagle's voice came in time, calm and powerful. This process may cause a huge commotion. It's better to go back as soon as possible. Otherwise, once someone discovered, Chu Liyue's whereabouts today would definitely be discovered. Chu Liyue frowned, then quickly nodded. I got it. She retreated without hesitation. After taking a few steps, she could not help but look back. In just a moment, she retracted her gaze, moved her body, and quickly left. The fluctuation from Dumpling's body grew stronger and stronger. Gradually, even Chu Liyue felt that it was difficult to control. She rushed back to Mount Jiuheng as fast as she could. As soon as she entered the room, she immediately summoned Dumpling. 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 Dumpling's eyes were still closed, and there were no signs of it waking up. The process of awakening the power of its bloodline is long and complicated. If it can't wake up in time, it's very likely that due to the power riot, whoosh. A huge black figure appeared in the room. The legendary three-eyed eagle folded its wings and stared sharply at Dumpling. You must wake it up as soon as possible and awaken the power of its bloodline on its own, and control it. In just 2 short sentences, Chu Liyue clearly understood the danger of this matter. She looked at Dumpling, and a trace of worry flashed in her eyes. But it hasn't moved until now, and I can't wake it up no matter what. As she spoke, an even stronger invisible fluctuation spread out from Dumpling's body. Now, there was no longer any flickering silver tianlei on its body. It was just a furry red ball lying quietly on the table, looking very obedient. If it was any other time, Chu Liyue might be very happy to see it like this, but now, she only felt more and more worried. Continue to call it. Before that, I will help it guide the awakening power of its bloodline in its body. But, I can only help so much. In the end, it still has to rely on itself. Chu Liyue gritted her teeth. I got it. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1308. Time began to pass unendingly. In the room, Chu Liyue kept trying to wake Dumpling up, but to no avail. But as time passed, Dumpling's aura became more and more powerful. At first, the legendary three-eyed eagle could still control the power to redirect it into its body and refine its flesh. But as Dumpling's power became more and more powerful, the legendary three-eyed eagle began to struggle. Although it was also a divine beast, and its level was not low, awakening the power of the bloodline was not something that outsiders could interfere with. Chu Liyue tried various methods, but Dumpling remained indifferent. That pair of tightly shut eyes showed no signs of opening. Boom! A wave spread out and hit the barrier that Chu Liyue had set up before, making a muffled sound. The barrier began to shake. Chu Liyue rubbed her temples. According to the current pattern of Dumpling's power increasing, her barrier would be broken in about an hour. This can't go on. Chu Liyue looked worriedly at the legendary three-eyed eagle. Is there any other way? The legendary three-eyed eagle shook its head. Only when it wakes up can it smoothly solve all these problems. Even if its kin came, it would be useless. If we let these powers flow uncontrollably in its body, I'm afraid. It did not finish its words, but Chu Liyue knew what it meant. After thinking for a long time, she suddenly asked, "Can I help it?" A look of surprise flashed across the eyes of the legendary three-eyed eagle. What? Chu Liyue repeated seriously, "I'm its master. We have a contractual relationship and are closely connected. It can be said that we breathe and share the same fate." Can I help it? The legendary three-eyed eagle was silent for a moment. With your help, it can naturally hold on for a while. But fundamentally, it can't, then it's decided. Chu Liyue did not wait for the legendary three-eyed eagle to finish speaking and made a prompt decision. At this time, even a little help would be good. The longer they held on, the greater their hope. As long as they could wait until Dumpling woke up, everything was not worth mentioning. Are you sure you want to do this? The legendary three-eyed eagle stared at Chu Liyue, its eyes full of disapproval and warning. You have to know that the bloodline power of the red-tailed phoenix is extremely fierce and violent. It's not something that the human race can withstand. Chu Liyue's plan to use her own flesh and blood to resist it is simply ridiculous. She did not care about her own safety at all. But Chu Liyue's lips. Although I'm to be honest with you, my physical strength is not inferior to that of a 9th-rank warrior. Also, if there is any danger, I have the ability to protect myself. You know this very well, don't you? But, the legendary three-eyed eagle wanted to persuade him again. In addition, the most important thing is that Tuanzi is my friend as well as my family. I can't just stand by and watch, even if I have to pay a painful price. Chu Liyue's voice was very soft, but every word he said seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. Something flashed in the eyes of the legendary three-eyed eagle. Boom! Chu Liyue's barrier began to crumble. I can't hesitate any longer. Chu Liyue placed his hand on Dumpling's body and slowly closed his eyes. Let's begin. Early morning. Luo Yanming and Zhuoxing arrived at Mount Jiuheng early in the morning. On one hand, they wanted to visit Chu Liyue's illness. On the other hand, Luo Yanming had always wanted to find an opportunity to spar with Chu Liyue about Xian formations, but she never had the chance, so she planned to try today. If Chu Liyue's body was fine, then they could start today. The two of them shouted twice outside the barrier, but no one answered. Could it be that this fellow hasn't woken up yet? Zhuoxing asked suspiciously. Luo Yanming frowned and raised her voice to shout again. There was still no response. Something's wrong. Luo Yanming frowned slightly. It was not the first time they came to call for him. Chu Liyue always came out very quickly, but this time, no one responded and no one could see him. Could there really be a problem? The joking expression on Zhuoxing's face disappeared. He took a few steps forward, but was quickly pushed back by the pressure of the barrier. He looked at Luo Yanming with some hesitation. He hasn't gone out recently, right? Luo Yanming shook her head. I saw him go to the Medicine Wind Valley yesterday evening. He should have gone to get medicine. It's impossible for him to not return for a night. The two of them looked at each other and were worried. Is it really because he's sick? Zhuoxing's face was full of suspicion. If it's not an important illness, he shouldn't give up the opportunity to go to the primeval north. No, I think we should ask the elders to come over and take a look. Luo Yanming was still a little uncertain at first, but after listening to him, she felt that it made sense and nodded in agreement. You stay here first. I'll ask Master to come over. He seems to be able to enter Jiuheng Mountain. With that, Luo Yanming turned around and was about to leave. However, at this moment, a loud sound suddenly came from within Jiuheng Mountain. Boom! The two of them were startled and looked over at the same time. No, there was nothing. That sound seemed to have come from inside the room. The two of them looked even more tense. At first, it was just a guess, but now, perhaps something had really happened. Luo Yanming did not say anything and immediately left at full speed. Only Zhuoxing was left at the scene, looking at Jiuheng Mountain with a face full of worry. Inside the room, Chu Liyue sat cross-legged with her eyes closed. Her face was flush red, and her brows were tightly knitted, as if she was suffering from some kind of great pain. In front of her, Dumpling was lying there quietly, motionless. The color of the feathers on its body gradually became denser, and the aura around its body also rapidly increased. Waves of energy spread out in all directions. A portion of this energy was devoured by the three-eyed eagle, while the remaining portion flowed into Chu Liyue's body. The veins on her forehead bulged, and the blood in her body flowed as if it was boiling. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1309. Chu Liuyue's physical strength was definitely one of the best among warriors of the same level or even higher. Now that she had undergone a lot of tempering, even if she had to deal with the attacks of 2 puppets of the 9th rank, it would not be a problem. However, this was only compared to the human race. At this moment, Chu Liyue finally understood what the three-eyed eagle meant by those warnings. The endurance of magical beasts and humans were not on the same level. The bloodline power in Dumpling's body was gradually awakening. This power could be said to be terrifying. Even though her body had undergone a lot of tempering, it was still a little difficult for her to deal with this power. Her flesh and bones felt like they were about to be torn apart. The violent power surged like a river, instantly devouring everything. Chu Liyue endured the torture of this power on her body and reintroduced it into Dumpling's body. At the same time, she kept calling out Dumpling's name in her heart, hoping that it would wake up as soon as possible. However, as time went by, Tuanzi didn't respond. Elder Hua Feng rushed over with Luo Yanming. "Where's Chu Yu?" Shuixing quickly said, "He should still be inside. But the situation may be a little dangerous." In this short period of time, another muffled sound came from inside. He felt uneasy when he heard it. Elder Hua Feng frowned and took a few steps forward. On the way here, he had already heard Luo Yanming explain the situation. "This old man will go in and take a look." Luo Yanming and Zhuxing were about to follow, but they were nailed to the ground by his gaze. "You guys stay here." If there really was a situation inside, these 2 people would not be enough for him to worry about. Seeing the usually amiable Elder Hua Feng reveal such a serious expression, the 2 of them did not dare to say anything. They only nodded and obediently stayed where they were. Elder Hua Feng raised his hand, took out the green jade token, and placed it on the barrier. Wang! The barrier opened. Elder Hua Feng quickly flashed in. "Someone is coming." The voice of the three-eyed eagle suddenly entered her ears. Chu Liyue had been in a tense state, so she didn't hear Luo Yanming and the others' shouts. But at this moment, the words of the legendary three-eyed eagle finally made her sober up. "Who is it?" Normally, almost no one would casually enter or leave this place. It doesn't seem to be Rongshou. If it was him, she should be able to sense it. "No." The legendary three-eyed eagle quickly replied. Chu Liyue gritted her teeth. "Come back first." The fact that the legendary three-eyed eagle was her contracted mythological beast must not be easily discovered by others. Otherwise, her true identity would be discovered at any moment. But, Dumpling's bloodline power had yet to be completely awakened. There's a small surprise at noon. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1310. Elder Yu was shocked by the scene in front of him. "Chu Yu. What's wrong with you?" Elder Hua Feng hurriedly shouted from behind, "Don't ask. Open the barrier and let him in." At this moment, Elder Yu finally saw Chu Liyue's sorry state. He didn't dare to neglect and hurriedly opened the barrier. An entrance slowly opened. Chu Liyue immediately sped up and rushed in. "Thank you, Elder Yu." As soon as he finished speaking, he had already rushed inside. Elder Yu only felt a gust of wind blow past, and Chu Yu disappeared. He hurriedly turned around and saw that the young man was rushing straight to the inner area of the beast park at an astonishing speed. Elder Hua Feng followed closely behind. Elder Yu immediately followed with a frown. "Hua Feng, what's going on? Why did Chu Yu suddenly rush over in such a hurry early in the morning?" Moreover, there was something wrong with the way he looked. As Elder Hua Feng rushed forward, he said, I'm not sure now." That kid didn't have time to say anything and went straight here. I don't know what he wants to do. After that, he briefly recounted the events of the day to Elder Yu, causing Elder Yu's brows to knit together tightly. If he's sick, why did he come here? This beast park is full of all kinds of ferocious magical beasts. Wouldn't it be even more dangerous for him to barge in rashly? Elder Yu really couldn't figure it out. Let's not talk about that for now. Let's follow him and see what he wants to do. As Elder Huafeng spoke, he sped up again. On the other side, Chu Luiyue really used all her strength and rushed to a mountain peak as fast as she could. As if sensing her aura, a huge steel-spine beast walked out of the cave and looked in the direction of Chu Luiyue. Ah, Qiong! Chu Luiyue shouted and quickly flew down. After landing in front of the cave, she hurriedly walked inside. Ah, Qiong! Do me a favor. Seeing Chu Luiyue's current state, Qiong's originally joyful and longing expression instantly became tense and serious. It followed Chu Yu inside. Tao Tao seemed to be sleeping. He opened his eyes slowly when he heard the noise. Out of the corner of its eye, it saw a familiar figure and immediately got up happily. However, just as it was about to go over happily, it realized that there was something wrong with Chu Luiyue. At this moment, Qiong also walked in and looked at Chu Luiyue worriedly. Tao Tao ran to his mother hurriedly. Under the gaze of the mother and son, Chu Luiyue loosened his embrace. A furry dumpling was revealed. Qiong and Dumpling both took a step back, their eyes filled with awe and shock. The red-tailed red phoenix had the power of the blood of the red-tailed red phoenix, one of the two ancient mythical beasts, so it was respected even among the mythical beasts. In addition, it was at the critical moment of the awakening of the power of the blood. When these things happened one after another, even he was shocked speechless, let alone Elder Huafeng who didn't know anything about it. Since that's the case, doesn't that mean that Chu Yu should be safe now? Elder Huafeng asked, his voice a little shaky. Half and half. He obviously came for the steel spine beast. Perhaps he was sure that the steel spine beast could help him. It's a pity that we don't know what's wrong with him, so we can only wait and see. As Elder Yu spoke, he patted Elder Huafeng's arm comfortingly. Don't worry. That kid's life is very tough, nothing will happen to him. That night, he was besieged by so many mythical beasts, but he survived unscathed, let alone now. Elder Huafeng's mood was complicated, and he could only let out a long sigh. I hope so. Silence reigned in the cave. Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged. Not far in front of her was Dumpling, who was lying on the ground, and beside her was Qiong. Terrifying forces were wreaking havoc in her body. The ground beneath her was gradually dyed red with blood. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 13:11. After a long time, Dumpling's wings finally moved. It seemed that she was about to wake up. Chu Luiyue was happy in her heart, but she didn't dare to relax at all. Her body seemed to be cut by countless knives, and the severe pain came from all parts of her body. No matter how powerful she was just a warrior at the 8th level now. How could she bear the power of a divine beast? Especially, it was the power of the red-tailed phoenix, which was almost the top bloodline. Qiong was next to her, taking most of the power into its own body. Gradually, tiny cracks began to appear on its incredibly tough skin. Blood flowed out slowly. Wu, seeing this scene, Tao Tao was afraid and worried. His eyes were full of panic. He ran over and touched at Qiong's body. Qiong didn't move. Looking at the blood on the ground, Tao Tao shed tears again. He simply put his horns over and wanted to help. Chu Luiyue noticed the movement and warned in a low voice, Tao Tao, step back. Now it was not an adult, and its strength was not enough in all aspects. It didn't even cross the threshold of a divine beast. How could it bear the power of dumpling? Cheong also opened its eyes and kicked Tao Tao away. Tao Tao rolled on the ground for half a circle. It was stained with a lot of blood and mud. It looked very embarrassed. It got up unwillingly and wanted to go again. Cheong made a low cry in its throat, which was full of majesty. Tao Tao was so scared that he stood still. He didn't dare to move again, but his tears kept falling down. Chu Liuyua's mouth overflowed with blood. Her internal organs seemed to be stirred crazily. She was very uncomfortable. Soon, her red cheeks became pale, and all the blood faded away quickly. A feeling of collapse came from the depths of her body, and the scene in front of her began to turn white. Chu Liyue knew that she was already a spent arrow. It had been 2 or 3 hours since he found that Dumpling was going to break through last night. It was very amazing that Chu Liyue could hold on until now. If it were other warriors at the 8th level, their bodies might have burst because they couldn't bear it. You can't go on like this. The voice of the legendary three-eyed eagle fell into her ears. Here I come. Chu Liyue shook his head. That won't do. There are many demonic beasts here. Once you appear, they will definitely sense you. Moreover, Elder Yu Yu and Elder Huafeng are outside as well. She couldn't take the risk. But you can't hold on any longer. The voice of the legendary three-eyed eagle was exceptionally cold and firm. Do you want to die? The corners of Chu Liyue's mouth curled up slightly, revealing an extremely faint smile. There are other ways. She was silent for a moment. Suddenly she looked at Tao Tao and said word by word, Tao Tao, if you want to save your mother, go to ask for help immediately. Tao Tao stopped crying. He looked at Chu Liyue blankly with his big eyes. Foreign aid? What foreign aid? The legendary three-eyed eagle's voice became even colder. Those 2 humans have nothing to do with the red-tailed red phoenix. Even if they come, they can't help at all. You're still, who said I invited them? Chu Liyue interrupted the legendary three-eyed eagle. The legendary three-eyed eagle was stunned. Who else could it be? It seemed that there were only those 2 people who could come to help in this area. Chu Liyue didn't answer its question. She just took a deep breath and endured the pain in her body. She said slowly, Silver Ear Piebald Beast, Motonk, Nightmare Beast, 9-thundered Giant Ape. The names of the mythological beasts came out from her mouth one by one. Ask them to come here immediately. After she finished speaking, the cave was silent for a moment. The legendary three-eyed eagle couldn't believe it and asked, You want to ask these mythological beasts to come here to help? These were all mythological beasts. They were all arrogant, fierce, and violent. It was impossible for them to gather together to help anyone at the same time. Even those 9th-grade evil beasts would not be willing to listen to the orders of a human, let alone them. What was Chu Liyue thinking about? Could it be that he had gone mad? Of course, Chu Liyue was not crazy. On the contrary, she was extraordinarily calm. Dumpling is a mythological beast. It's useless for 9th-grade evil beasts to come here. Naturally, I want to ask these mythological beasts to come here. The legendary three-eyed eagle choked. For a moment, it didn't know how to refute. In its opinion, Chu Liyue was just wishful thinking. Chu Liyue didn't care about its opinion. She just looked at Tao Tao and urged him, It will be too late if you wait a little longer. Tao Tao was shocked. Then he reacted. He immediately turned around and ran outside. Just when he rushed to the entrance of the cave, Chu Liyue shouted again, Wait. Tao Tao turned back. Chu Liyue's voice was very light, but it seemed to be very powerful, which shocked people's minds. If they don't want to cooperate, just say that I asked them to come here. If anyone doesn't listen to me, I will slaughter the beast park again in the future. The waiting time seemed to be extremely long and unbearable. Elder Huafeng clasped his hands in front of him tightly. He frowned and kept staring at the mountain peak not far away. His heart seemed to be suspended by something. It was neither up nor down. He was very uncomfortable. Alas! There was a little noise just now. Why is there no sound at all now? I don't know how Chu Yu is now. Although Elder Yu Yu was also very worried, he was much calmer than Elder Huafeng. After all, he saw with his own eyes how Chu Yu killed the golden cloud leopard and the black gold wolf with one sword. Seeing that Elder Huafeng was very worried, he thought for a while and comforted him. Huafeng, it's useless to be so nervous now. I've said that this guy's strength is good now. He won't. His voice suddenly stopped, and he looked surprised and doubtful. Elder Huafeng followed his gaze and looked at it. He was also puzzled at once. Is that the cub of the steel spine beast? Elder Yu Yu nodded. It came out. What's inside? No, why did it run down the mountain? When they were talking, the cub of the steel spine beast that came out of the cave ran down the mountain quickly. Its speed was extremely fast. Bang! Bang! Even the ground where it passed by was shaking. Elder Yu Yu didn't know why, but he suddenly had an ominous premonition in his heart. It was reasonable to say that this cub of the steel spine beast should have a good relationship with Chu Yu. But now, for some reason, it suddenly ran out alone. However, Chu Yu and the adult steel spine beast in the cave didn't move at all. This was simply too strange. No, I have to go down and take a look. Elder Huafeng said as he was about to go over. Elder Yu Yu immediately pulled him back. Wait a little longer. What are you waiting for? Elder Huafeng was sweating profusely. If something really happens to that kid, it will be too late if we go over now. Let go of me. Elder Huafeng was struggling when he suddenly saw Elder Yu Yu's expression change drastically. His heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly turned around to look. When he saw it, he couldn't help but gasp. Why did a divine beast come over at this time? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 13:12. Mo Tianke. It was rumored that this kind of magical beast was fierce and extremely aggressive. But was it true? Elder Huafeng widened his eyes and stared at the rapidly approaching Mo Tianke as he asked anxiously. Elder Yu Yu pursed his lips and said calmly, "Don't worry. Although this Mo Tianke is a divine beast, with our strength, it's not a problem to deal with it." His voice stopped abruptly. Because after that Mo Tianke, there were actually a few more that flew over in succession. They were extremely fast and had already flown past in the blink of an eye. They were heading towards the mountain where Chu Yu was. At a rough glance, there were as many as 5 or 6 of them. Elder Huafeng tugged at Elder Yu Yu's sleeve. Do you still mean what you said just now? They are so small. The two of us should be able to deal with 5 or 6 of them, right? Even he felt a little guilty when he said this. Mo Tianke's body was very small, but it was still a divine beast after all. Moreover, it was the kind that was notorious for being fierce. To be able to win such an evaluation from so many magical beasts, one could see how strong its combat strength was. Elder Yu Yu was also dumbfounded. In the entire beast park, there were only about 10 Mo Tianke in total. Half of them had come all of a sudden. Even on the night when Chu Yu was preparing to break through, there weren't so many of them. He frowned and his expression was solemn. Don't worry, it should be, look. Before he could finish speaking, Elder Hua Feng exclaimed again and pointed to a certain place below. That's a silver-ear spotted beast. Elder Yu took a closer look and saw that it was indeed a silver-ear spotted beast whose ears had been cut off. The cuts on the ears were neat and flat. It didn't look like they were bitten off by other magical beasts. Instead, it looked more like they were cut off by some kind of sharp weapon. With its ears cut off, its strength will be greatly reduced. Why is it here at this time? Elder Yu couldn't understand. But soon, he didn't have time to think about this. Because behind the silver-ear spotted beast, there were actually more magical beasts approaching. Nightmare Beast. 9 Lightning Giant Ape. Golden Eye Ice Bat. Looking at the figures that appeared one after another, Elder Yu's voice gradually trembled. Why are there so many divine beasts all of a sudden? From the looks of it, they were all targeting Chu Yu. What kind of sin did this kid commit? The previously calm and collected Elder Yu finally couldn't help but explode. Chu Yu wasn't preparing to break through this time. They had waited outside for so long, but they didn't even notice any movement. Why did it attract so many divine beasts? Elder Hua Feng grabbed him by the collar. Yu. Didn't you just say there was no problem? What was going on now? I don't know either. I shouldn't have listened to you. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 13:13. With this loud noise, a vast and turbulent power erupted from the cave. The mountain peak shook violently as if it was in danger of collapsing at any time. The two elders' hearts were in a mess. Then, they saw that the divine beasts did not leave after hearing the noise. Instead, they suddenly sped up and rushed into the cave. The first to arrive was Mo Tianke. A few Mo Tianke glanced at Dumpling lying on the ground and felt the pressure on her body. They all took a step back subconsciously. Chu Luiyue looked up and glanced at them. Immediately after, the Mo sky sparrows quickly flew forward and lined up in a row. One of them, Chu Luiyue, looked quite familiar. Looking at the fluffy wing that had just grown out, she narrowed her eyes. You came quite quickly. The few Mo Tianke were angry but did not dare to say anything. They straightened their small bodies. Chu Luiyue raised her hand. A part of the power was transferred to them. The ones behind, come one by one. Chu Luiyue said lightly. The few magical beasts that had just entered were stunned. They looked at each other and did not know who would go first. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly and was a little impatient. Just follow the order of the fight with me before. Oh, it's the order of being beaten. The few of them quickly understood and hurriedly lined up. Chu Luiyue slowly wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and showed a rare satisfied smile. In fact, she was almost unable to hold on at this time. She was just relying on the last of her willpower to hold on. She raised her finger and another part of the power was shared. This time, the pressure on Chu Luiyue and Aqiong was reduced by a lot. She closed her eyes and smiled faintly. Her voice was a little hoarse and lazy. Very good. As obedient as before. All the divine beasts entered the cave one after another. The surroundings seemed to have returned to peace. Except for the energy that was spreading and getting stronger and stronger, everything seemed to be the same as before. The two elders stood in the air in a daze, completely confused by what was happening in front of them. These divine beasts, went in just like that. Elder Hua Feng swallowed hard. Still waiting in line. What was wrong with this world? Yu, say something. Elder Yu rubbed his forehead. What do you want me to say? You have stayed in this beast park for such a long time, you should know more than me, right? What was going on? Elder Huafeng was both shocked and worried. Elder Yu glanced at him and faintly said, "Do I look like I know?" But Chu Yu is still inside. Rather than worrying about him, why don't you worry about the demonic beasts in the beast park? Elder Yu took a deep breath. He had worked so hard to take care of the beast park, but in the end, he was worse off than a brat. Elder Huafeng frowned. Chapter 13-14. This golden flame was extremely dazzling. The moment it appeared, it lit up the whole cave instantly. An indescribably vast aura spread out from it. Chu Luiyue was shocked, and the water droplets in her body rotated faster unconsciously. The force in her body began to rotate at a more unusual speed. Woo! A low whimper came. It was the evil beasts around. At this time, they all bent down and looked at the burning flame, trembling. That was the absolute pressure from the bloodline. It was a complete suppression. Even Ah Cheong stood up with difficulty. She took Tao Tao back a few steps. In the cave, the brilliant fire was shining, as if it was daytime. In the middle, there was a person and a beast. Chu Luiyue stared at the golden flame in the red flame. As time went by, the surrounding red flame seemed to gradually turn into golden flame. The light became brighter and brighter. Chu Luiyue said, "You all go out first." Hearing her words, many evil beasts nodded hurriedly and retreated. "Cheong, you and Tao Tao also go outside to guard first." Cheong looked at her hesitantly, but finally she obeyed her order and left with Tao Tao. The injuries on its body were quite serious. Its skin and flesh were chapped, and blood was flowing out. Many of its wounds looked like they were badly mutilated. It could be seen that it had suffered a terrible attack just now. Wherever they passed, there was a line of blood with different depths on the ground. After they all left, Chu Luiyue took back her sight and looked at Dumpling. Dumpling's eyelids moved as if she was aware of her gaze. Chu Luiyue smiled in a low voice, "You have to pay off the debt you owe when you go out." Dumpling didn't say anything, but the flame on her body burned more fiercely. The two elders stared at the mountain peak nervously. More and more divine beasts came out. But after they reached the foot of the mountain, they didn't leave. Instead, they stopped and looked at the mountainside together, as if they were waiting for something. "What are they doing?" Elder Huafeng was confused by this scene. The ones from before all scattered. Why are they not leaving now that they've come out? Elder Yu didn't say anything, but his expression became even more serious. The guess in his heart might really come true. More and more cracks appeared on the mountain peak. Trees collapsed one after another, and rocks rolled down the mountain. The surrounding heaven and earth energy began to surge toward them. In the end, it formed a huge energy vortex, which looked very shocking. Dark clouds rolled and the wind howled. Anyone could see that the mountain was about to be destroyed. Furthermore, something even more shocking must have happened. A storm was brewing. Elder Huafeng gradually felt a trace of uneasiness. He pursed his lips tightly and didn't say anything else. The surroundings quieted down. It was like an undercurrent on the surface of the water, ready to erupt at any time. A day passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, it was evening. Looking at the gradually darkening sky, Shuixing paced back and forth in front of the house with an anxious expression. Luo Yanming, who was sitting in the room, finally couldn't help but say, "Shuixing, you're making me dizzy. Can't you sit down and wait?" "I can't sit down." Shuixing scratched his head with a frustrated expression. "Tell me, where did Chu Yu and Elder Huafeng go? It's been half a day, but we haven't seen a single person." Sigh, if only we had caught up in time. Luo Yanming looked at him suspiciously. "Do you have some misunderstanding about your own strength, or do you think too highly of me?" Do you actually think that the two of us can catch up to my master? The situation had happened suddenly. After Chuyu came out of Nineheng Mountain, he quickly disappeared. Elder Huafeng followed closely behind, and he didn't even have time to say a word before running away. Originally, Zhusheng and Luo Yanming had planned to follow them, but they lost them not long after. Helpless, the two of them could only choose to return first. They planned to wait for Elder Huafeng and the others to return before asking in detail what was going on. Although they were worried about Chuyu, Elder Huafeng was a respected elder of the academy after all. With him around, they could feel a little more at ease. Who knew that this wait would last for nearly a day? Elder Huafeng and Chuyu didn't show any signs of returning. The two of them didn't dare to go outside and ask around, so they could only continue to scratch their heads and wait. Hearing this, Zhusheng was a little disheartened. It's strange. You said that Elder Huafeng's strength is tyrannical, so it's normal that we can't catch up. But why is Chuyu's speed so fast? At that time, he hadn't seen anything clearly and he disappeared in the blink of an eye. It's not bad that he's a 9th grade celestial physician now, but his cultivation level isn't as high as mine. How can he be faster than me? Zhusheng really couldn't understand. Moreover, I don't know if it's an illusion or not, but when he rushed past me, I felt that his aura was not much worse than mine. He was more conservative with his words. In fact, when he thought about it later, he even felt that he was slightly inferior to the other party. But Chuyu was indeed only a 7th rank warrior some time ago, which everyone saw with their own eyes. Even if he was a genius, it was impossible to break through so much in such a short period of time, right? What's so strange about this? Compared to Zhusheng's shock and suspicion, Luo Yanming was much calmer. He smiled. Do you really think that he's only talented as a celestial physician? The corner of Zhusheng's eyes twitched. What do you mean by that? Luo Yanming's lips moved, and in the end, he only said, how can he be an ordinary person to be valued so highly by senior brother Rongshou? I just feel that what he has displayed now is not his true strength. That's true. Chuyu has always been unpredictable, and he has hidden his strength deeply. Zhusheng nodded in agreement and said again, however, I still hope that nothing will happen to him this time. It's fine as long as he's fine. Let's wait and see. Luo Yanming said. Night. Beast Park. Elder Huafeng and Zhusheng were still waiting. The surroundings had already darkened, and only on the mountain peak, a bright glow shone out from the cave. Moreover, as time passed, the light became more and more dazzling. Suddenly, the huge energy vortex stopped spinning, and then swept away with the dark clouds in the sky. Kacha! An exceptionally clear sound of the mountain rocks shattering could be heard. In the quiet mountain forest, it was exceptionally clear. The two elders looked at each other and saw the nervousness in each other's eyes. Boom! The mountain peak, which had long been on the verge of collapse, exploded from the inside out by a terrifying force. A thick reddish-gold flame that seemed to be unable to dissipate soared into the sky. Amidst it, an astonishing aura that seemed to have come from ancient times swept across the entire sky in a grandiose manner. Whoosh! A pair of huge wings suddenly spread out. Screech! Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 13-15. Clear. Melodious. Majestic. A clear cry shook the heavens and earth. Countless magical beasts that had been waiting quietly in the surroundings for a day heard this command. Their spirits were lifted, and they immediately let out a cry in unison. In his voice, there was neither the arrogance nor the ruthlessness of a divine beast. There was only complete submission and reverence. In the next moment, these magical beasts actually knelt on the ground. They were trembling with fear, but they were also filled with piety and reverence. That was admiration and reverence for the most noble bloodline in the world. Such a scene truly shocked the two elders both physically and mentally. Elder Hua Feng widened his eyes in shock. That is, an absurd and daring conjecture flashed through his mind. But because it was too unbelievable, he found it difficult to say those words. Red gold flames, in the world, only one kind of magical beast had such a flame. Even though Elder Yu had already guessed this result in his heart, he was still shocked when he saw it with his own eyes. He took a deep breath and seemed to be able to smell the unique smell of the flames burning fiercely in the air. It was as if everything was going to be burned to ashes. That is, the ancient divine beast, the crimson gold heavenly phoenix. Every word seemed to carry a great weight, like a stone crashing down, causing people's hearts to tremble. How can it be? Elder Hua Feng's expression was dull as he muttered in disbelief. The crimson gold heavenly phoenix hasn't appeared on the continent for 3,000 years, but now, that was Chu Yu's contracted magical beast. This fact constantly impacted Elder Hua Feng's heart, causing him to feel a little dizzy. Elder Yu raised his head and looked at the red gold figure in the black night sky with a complicated expression. If he hadn't seen all of this with his own eyes, he would have thought that this was a dreamlike environment. The red-tailed phoenix originally had the bloodline power of the crimson gold heavenly phoenix flowing in its body. Among the many magical beasts in the world, it is the most likely existence to break through the shackles and become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. However, it is very difficult to achieve this step. With generations of inheritance, the current red-tailed phoenix's bloodline power is thin. Logically speaking, there is almost no such possibility, but Chu Yu's contracted magical beast did it. How could this not be shocking? No wonder. No wonder those magical beasts were so obedient just now. So, it was because they had already predicted the birth of this crimson gold heavenly phoenix. Elder Hua Feng seemed to have suddenly thought of something, and a look of understanding appeared on his face. Apart from the two ancient godly beasts, who else would have such terrifying charisma? In the next moment, a slender figure leaped up from below. It was Chu Luyue whom the two elders had been waiting for a long time. At this moment, her clothes were already stained with bloodstains. Her complexion was also incomparably pale. She appeared to be in a very sorry state. However, only that pair of eyes were as bright as the stars, flickering with dazzling light. Sensing her arrival, the crimson gold celestial phoenix in the sky, which was being worshipped by many demonic beasts, looked down. Then, it flapped its wings and flew towards Chu Luyue. In the black night sky, a reddish-gold arc was drawn. In the next second, it was already in front of Chu Luyue. A human and a beast stood facing each other. Chu Luyue's originally tall figure instantly appeared much smaller in the contrast of the crimson gold celestial phoenix. However, for some reason, she stood there quietly. Her aura did not lose to the crimson gold celestial phoenix. Under such a contrast, she still did not lose her brilliance. Dumpling. Chu Luyue looked at Dumpling, who had completely changed her appearance in front of her. Something seemed to be surging between her chest and abdomen. Her heart was beating so fast that it almost jumped out. She had already guessed that Dumpling might break through this bloodline awakening, but she did not expect that it would directly step into the threshold of the crimson gold celestial phoenix. No wonder it did not wake up for so long. It turned out that it was brewing such a big move. It was not in vain that she spent so much effort to help it. She carefully sized up Dumpling. Its size was not much different from before, but the red feathers all over its body had turned into a reddish gold color. Its two claws were snow white, but its eyes had turned into a rich black color. At a glance, it was sparkling and moist, but also seemed bottomless. Only occasionally, when its eyes moved, one could catch a glimpse of a gorgeous light flashing by. From this pair of eyes, Chu Luiyue could clearly see her own reflection. Dumpling lowered its head and intimately rubbed against her face gently. Its body was burning with reddish-gold flames, but when Chu Luiyue touched these flames, she did not feel uncomfortable at all. Instead, she felt that they naturally merged together. Of course. This was her contracted magical beast. Feeling the heat from Dumpling's body, the soft feathers, and the strong attachment and intimacy, Chu Luiyue could not help but take a step forward and hug Dumpling's neck tightly with both hands. Fortunately, Tuanzi was safe and sound by her side in the end. Looking at the woman and beast hugging together, the many divine beasts below all quieted down. Looking at Chu Luiyue, there was only reverence and awe in their eyes. Previously, they were afraid of being beaten by her and did not dare to say anything, but now, they did not even dare to be angry. She had contracted with one of the two most noble ancient divine beasts in the world, and could be considered to be above all other beasts. What was there to make a fuss about? In the future, they could only be obedient. This kid. I'm afraid that his future will be limitless. Elder Yu still could not completely calm down, but he finally accepted everything that had happened. Looking at how close Chu Luiyue and Dumpling were, he could not help but laugh bitterly. I knew that he was powerful, but I did not expect that he would encounter such an opportunity. Luck and strength, neither could be missing. Previously, when he heard that Chu had accidentally obtained the Red Cloud sword, he was somewhat unconvinced. There were so many elders and so many outstanding students in the academy, but in the end, a young man who had just arrived at the academy took advantage of it. No matter who heard it, it was impossible for them to be completely calm. But today, he finally understood. What was a Red Cloud sword? A contracted magical beast breaking through and becoming an ancient divine beast in one fell swoop. This was what made people speechless. After all, in the entire continent, there were not many venerable artifacts like the Red Cloud sword. But how many magical beasts were there in the world? Just in their Lingshao College alone, he had seen 4 or 5 red-tailed phoenixes over the years. Not to mention the entire Divine Ruins world. There would definitely be more discussions. But Chu Yu's beast had broken through to become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. How could this be reasonable? Phew. You're right. Elder Hua Feng let out a long breath, rubbed his face hard, and sighed sincerely. Fortunately, I don't have a contract with a magical beast. Otherwise, I would be angered to death when I saw this scene. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.